Welcome to the Middletown City Council meeting for Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. I'm Zach Farrell, I'm the Vice Mayor. I'm going to host the meeting until the Mayor gets here. Thanks, guys. It was a pleasure. I'll be back.
You already got the
2
date
weeks.
wrong. It's the 19th.
Yep.
Give you 10 seconds.
I'd even mentally prepared for all that, so disappointed.
One for each hand.
I call to order and welcome you to the Middletown, Ohio regular City Council meeting for Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. Please join me for a moment of meditation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. You will hear 3 taps of the gavel when it is time to stand. Please join me in a moment of meditation now.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk of Council, Ms. Skank, please call the attendance roll.
Mr. Farrell,
I am here.
Mrs. Carter. Here. Mr. West,
Here.
Mr. Horn,
Here.
Mayor Slamka.
Here. Thank you. The next order of business is citizen comments. Please read, wait. Please read bullet point number 4 of our citizen comments guidelines on the screen behind us as it pertains to your presentations. A respectful professional presentation is expected. Personal attacks on staff, council members, and other individuals will not be tolerated. There will be no foul language. This is not the time for debate, questions and answer, or any back and forth conversation. This is a time for you, our residents, to be able to present to council on record, uninterrupted, and have the floor. We have received 1 comment card this evening. I would like to call Gregory Dean Wells to the podium. Please state your full name and Middletown residence or work address for the record. Please address the council as a whole. You will have 4 minutes of uninterrupted speech. Please commence.
Gregory Dean Wells. Live on 121 Arcadia Drive. Lived here 40 years. But the reason I came tonight was, the last meeting I was in, I didn't realize you had to fill out these cards to do that. But I read the newspaper article over the police chief situation, and of course last meeting you all discussed the different situations you were going about that. So I wanted to know, has a plan been put in place to up the pool of qualified people eligible to be considered for that job? And then the other discussion I listened to was the debate about the safety position or putting 2 officers on the street. And I was wondering, is that a budget problem or is it a philosophy problem amongst what needs to be done and why? So obviously there wasn't any give and take, so I didn't know. I didn't actually know how to go to find out about it, which is why I came back tonight. But the other original reason I came, I think everybody knows about the East Palestine rail accident, so I won't go into a bunch of details about that, but I was wondering what our plans were with respect to that railroad, because they do service these tracks here. I don't know what comes in and out here. I don't know if any of us do. I don't know if we have a way to know. And then our ability to deal with anything that comes up with it, obviously, because if you followed that situation in East Palestine, the hours of confusion and stuff after that happened, and of course the state of where it's at now, I don't know if they'll ever recover. So I just wanted to know what we had in place to deal with stuff like that. And that's really all I had to say, and I thank you for your time.
Mr. Wells? Mr. Wells?
Mr. Wells?
Here's my card. If you contact me tomorrow,
I got to go to the principal's office already.
yeah. No, contact me tomorrow and we'll get you answers and work with you.
All right, thank you very much. That concludes our public participation for the evening. The next agenda item is council comments. We will begin to my left with Councilmember Farrell, followed by Councilmember Carter, and then to my right with Councilmember West, followed by Councilmember Horn. I will speak last. Mr. Farrell?
Thanks, Mayor. First off, Paul, do you want to or should we? I think an article actually came out today, just a few hours ago, about the testing and the moving up of some potential people in the police department. Do you want to discuss that, or is that something that we want to discuss at a future date?
I can.
During city manager, or go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so presently, the situation is Deputy Chief Eric Crank is the acting police chief. Deputy Chief Crank is set to retire on April 19th. At that time, Deputy Chief Andy Warwick will become the acting police chief. Presently, we are in the midst of testing for the position of deputy chief. As that testing process plays out here over the next several weeks through an assessment center that the lieutenant and the sergeant candidates for the position of deputy chief are going through. Once they complete that assessment center, then we will hold internal interviews, and then at some point we will certify the list and or have the Civil Service Board will certify the list, and then we will, from that list, appoint a deputy chief. We then will post the position of police chief, which the process for the position of police chief will be you have to be a major or in the position, I believe, for at least a year to take the test. So eligible probably will be one of the majors and the police lieutenant, since they have been in the position. So we hope to have that process that will consist of the chief's position will consist once again of an assessment center and an internal interview process. We hope to have that completed by the 1st of June.
Perfect, thanks. So that answers that. Just a couple things. First off, I went to the St. Patty's Day, went to the parade, and then went downtown after. I know we got an email earlier about the economic update that had for downtown. I haven't had a chance to read that yet, but there were just hundreds of people just flying in and out of restaurants and all the local places to go downtown. So it was really exciting to see. It seems like anytime the cities, not just the city, but somebody's really involved in doing things downtown, it just brings hundreds of people every time. So it's always encouraging to see Middletown and the surrounding areas show out. Second thing, just wanted to make note of the Firefighter program that we have coming, to where we're going to take in 7 new firefighters paid for by the state. Hopefully, I mean, that's great. As I've noted a couple times, both my grandpas are firemen. My uncle actually was just in a wreck a few weeks ago, and he just actually wanted me to come here and say how thankful he was for the firefighters and the EMS and also the police officers that showed up to help him out right away. It's actually right here in downtown Middletown. So I just wanted to recognize you guys and appreciate your efforts. So that's all I really have. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Farrell. Ms. Carter?
I just want to comment also about the St. Patrick Day Parade. It was the first one that the city's had in a while, and it was great. It was crowded. I rode with my 5-year-old niece on my lap, and she waved, and it was just an experience that she's still talking about. So I think our downtown person, well, she's not really our downtown person. She's working with the city. And I'd like to give her a shout out to Jerry. She's doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Mr. West?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just to kind of reiterate what we've already heard, St. Patrick's Day was obviously a huge success here in the city. Me personally, I've never seen downtown like that. It was amazing. I remember when we were pulling out and made a left onto Central to start the parade. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I had a couple friends come into town that live elsewhere, cities like Mason, Cincinnati, and they fell in love with Middletown. They thought it's just, they always say, we only hear bad things, but they enjoyed that entire experience. We went out afterwards, and I swear, I think the whole city was downtown. So I'd like to thank the city and especially Jerry Lewis for coordinating that event. And like Councilman Farrell said, I know several city staff are putting together some economic impact reports, feedback coming from the small business owners down there. And initially, it looks unreal. For example, New Ale said that they're on a typical Saturday compared to Saturday, it was up 243%. I stopped into Steel City Pizza and they were completely out of dough. I mean, it was unreal. On another note, I'd like to thank fellow members on the park board, especially Danielle Woodward and her husband. They recently took the initiative to clean up Sherman Park, and I think they came up with like 15 bags of trash as we begin to go in there and revitalize that community park. And that's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. West. Mr. Horn?
Very encouraging with the St. Patty's Day parade, and I just want to kind of look forward. Jerry Lewis is doing a lot of work with her team, and I think she has Food Truck Fridays coming up. We have the Spanish Heritage Festivals. A lot of things going on in our city, which is very positive. We also have, and I think you can sign up through the website for the kids at different parks. They're going to have different activities to do during the warmer time. So it is the first day of spring. Yes, we're in Ohio, so spring really doesn't start till the first week of May. You have 2 weeks, and then here comes summer. But it's just encouraging to see that our first St. Patty's Day parade, and it looks like the parades of old, where it's packed out, and we're really doing the commerce. And this is downtown, and it shows the possibilities that we have, and we will continue to do. Just have that positivity and just keep attending these and participating with these events, and we will continue to grow and bring more people into our city.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. I have several comments this evening, and wanted to say that, yes, these events are absolutely wonderful, and it's kind of that idea that the city does have to do all things at all times. Sometimes people talk about, why do we care about events? It's part of it. It's part of our well-being, our joy of living, and it makes a difference for people in the community. One of the things I wanted to mention was, as part of Women's History Month, on Thursday, March 7th, I had the honor of attending the Miami Women in Middletown networking lunch and panel discussion. It was an invigorating event with great discussion and wonderful contacts of a diverse nature. Miami University Middletown, or MUM as we like to call it, is a gem in our city. The relationships built last as long as you wish, and I highly recommend anyone thinking of higher education, whether it's directly out of high school or going back to school to continue educating yourself, to take advantage of the tremendous opportunities that MUM gives to everyone in our community. Second, I'd like to just mention that on March 8th, Friday, March 8th, I was invited to a Central Academy House meeting. Central Academy is a K through 6th grade school of choice in Middletown. And the house meetings are held once a month, and it is a day of fun and energy and pure positivity for the children. The houses are akin to those of Harry Potter, and they all have positive names. I was speaking on the highlighted house of Mirasi. Mirasi is the Albanian word for kindness, and they asked me to speak on the importance of kindness in all we do throughout our lives. I was also inducted into the Aventura House, which is a Portuguese word for adventure. The kids, staff, and teachers were incredible, and I had a great talk with Principal Sipple afterward. I also want to take this opportunity to mention that the Board of Health meets every second Tuesday every month. And as mayor, the mayor sits on as president of that board. And I bring this up in relation to the upcoming total eclipse of the sun that we will be experiencing on Monday, April 8th. I would like to direct our residents to our city website. That's cityofmiddletown.org, cityofmiddletown.org. Under departments, then you can scroll over health, and then click on current events and alerts, and scroll down. You will see about 3 pages of some great tips there for the day. And then I just want to also mention some safety and health tips now that I want you to be aware of to prepare for that day. You may want to arrange, well, this is the reason why. We've been told that we could expect up to 20,000 new people in the city on that day. That's a lot of people. So there are some guidelines and some tips that I want to share with you, and I will be sharing more on April 2nd as well. You may want to arrange your schedule so that you do not need to travel on April 8th if at all possible. In fact, Butler County schools will be closed that day due to the eclipse. However, if you must travel, please travel with water, medications, some snacks, and any other supplies in case you encounter an extended delay on the roadways. Begin your day with a fully charged cell phone and carry extra power devices. Also, never please look directly at the sun. You can purchase glasses marked ISO 12312-2. That's ISO 12312-2 for the correct standards. And you can expect, this is what we're told, 3 to 4 hour delays for bus runs in the afternoon. Businesses might expect employees to have long delays driving to and from work. And of course, we'll be having people stopping off the highway, stopping in our streets in town. Just be aware of that as you go. Gas stations, restaurants, grocery stores, and any shops that sell food items or staples may want to be especially prepared for the influx. And it's not up yet, at least as far as this morning, but the March 12th Board of Health meeting did have an entire presentation devoted to this. So once that's up on the Health Board page, I do advise that people do take a look at that. Also, as part of Women's History Month, I thought it very fitting that I was invited to the Soroptimist International meeting on Thursday, March 14th. Soroptimist International is a global service volunteer organization for women, founded in 1921 with almost 66,000 members in 118 countries worldwide. The word soror is Latin for sister, and that's where the word sorority actually comes from. So this group is dedicated to helping women and girls access education and training to achieve economic empowerment, offering scholarships and more. It's a wonderful group. There's love and honor, experience, and growth there, and I highly encourage women who are interested in getting involved in their community, who would also like to make connections with other women doing good work, to look into the Soroptimists of Middletown, who also serve Monroe, Liberty Township, Westchester, and beyond in Butler County. And you can find more online at middletownsoroptimist.org. That's middletownsoroptimist.org. We all mentioned the St. Patrick's Day celebration, and it was just wonderful. I'm already looking forward to next year. Absolutely. Also wanted to mention a couple of upcoming events this weekend. This Saturday, March 23rd, at the Pendleton Arts Center, or the PAC, like we call it, located in downtown Middletown, there's an event called Spring into the PAC, beginning at 11 a.m. and ending at 6 p.m. The studios will be offering make-and-take projects and specials throughout the evening. Also this weekend, New Ales Brewing and Steel City Pizza, both located downtown, are hosting an event called on Sunday, March 24th, called Crafts and Drafts. This begins at 10 a.m. and ends at 2 p.m., and it's for craft lovers and beer enthusiasts alike. Also, wanted to mention that just yesterday, on Monday, March 18th, we had a ribbon cutting for our new Waffle House right here in Middletown. I remember going to Waffle House in high school. That was a lot of fun. They're open 24 hours, and now they're back. So I'm thrilled that they're here again. And I just wanted to say, please do visit their new location at 3455 Commerce Drive. And lastly, I just want to say that as a reminder that council will be voting for boards and commissions tonight. So if you have sent in your application, that will be completed this evening. Also, as a reminder, the City of Middletown accepts applications for our boards and commissions throughout the year. So if there's something that you have an interest in, please do submit your application. And that is all for me tonight, and that includes council comments. The next agenda item is the City Manager's Report. City Manager Lally, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Slamka, members of City Council. The first thing I also want to add is a big thank you to Jerry Lewis, our Community Events Coordinator. She did an absolutely fantastic job. Her and her team really had things prepared, organized, and Saturday sure was fun. in downtown Middletown. And the good news is there's even more of that coming here, as Councilmember Horn alluded to, here in the future. So we're excited about the things going on in Middletown, and people will have a lot to be thankful for. I have 4 things on the city manager's report this evening. You see 3 there. We added 1. With some questions that came up on legislation and how the system works when a piece of legislation comes before you in terms of a court order. I asked Judge Sharon or Clerk of Courts Steve Longworth to come tonight and kind of just give you a little bit of a overview of how that works. So Steve, if you're available and come up.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of City Council. Appreciate you having the court for a few moments tonight. As I alluded to a couple of weeks ago, there's a second court order that's later on your agenda for tonight, Resolution R2024-10, regarding the Special Projects Fund. Much like the last presentation, this fund is created originally by Judge Wall in 1999 by court rule. That's in conjunction with ORC 1901.26B1D and previous City Commission resolution from '99 as well. These are special funds that are solely at the court's discretion. If the court properly budgets, then that is acceptable. If they miss something, which is the case tonight with this, then the court order is to be issued out per revised code to enumerate, for lack of a better term, what the court is doing. Tonight's is a little convoluted. We have a elected judge in Warren County, Judge Loxley, who is a part-time judge. He sits for us on occasion when Judge Sharon is off due to vacation, conferences, or other scheduling. So we budgeted for him as a line item as a contractual employee. The Supreme Court was kind enough to correct me on that and say that he needs to be a payroll employee. So the judge simply set out an order that spells that out. He's not really a city employee. The city acts as his funding source, but he's to be treated as a payroll employee. That's why a court order had to be generated on this that just enumerates all that to try and make it clearer. Happy to take any questions that you have on this issue or on court orders as a whole. I will say briefly, in my entire tenure as the court administrator since 2010, there's been 4 court orders. So they are very rare. May I answer any questions for you, or is there anything else you'd like me to speak on that?
I just thank you for explaining. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. You're welcome. Next on our, my reports, I should say, is firefighter recognition. We had a group of firefighters who were recognized at the state level here recently and received an award from the Ohio Department of Public Safety for the handling of an emergency childbirth situation where they not only successfully delivered 1 premature baby, but realized soon after that a second child was arriving. They did an exemplary job and were put up for award at the state level, so I'd like to ask Chief Snively to come on down and make a presentation with these firefighters who received this award at the state level.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you. Thanks for the feedback. Vice Mayor Farrell, appreciate that. As Chief Lawley alluded to, the City of Middletown Division of Fire and the ER staff at the atrium were recipients of Ohio's first, I want to emphasize the first ever, Pediatric Saves Award. This was given through the Children's State Partnership Program. I'm proud of the fact that future awards will be measured against how we performed. So that's pretty neat. So the award recognizes exceptional clinical performance during a pediatric emergency, which was clearly what they had up against them. This award was presented at the inaugural Ohio EMS for Children's Conference on Friday, March 1st in Columbus, which is where that picture was taken. So I would like to call the individuals down that were on the call. They're not all here, obviously, but I would like to bring them down and recognize them individually. Deputy Chief Brian Wright is off today. He's not here, so next I want to call up Fire Lieutenant Paramedic Steve Riley. Steve is not only a Middletown High School graduate, but he's a Middletown resident. Firefighter Paramedic Kevin Bryant. Firefighter EMT Celine Shank is off today. She's not going to attend tonight. Firefighter Paramedic AJ Marchetti, who is a Fenwick graduate, Middletown resident. Firefighter, which is line up right here. Firefighter Paramedic Jacob Moore. Firefighter Paramedic Joshua Lentz is not here, and then former Firefighter Paramedic Michael Michkowski was on the call, but has since moved to a different department since then. As you know, this recognition was in the paper, it was on Facebook, so this may be somewhat old news to you. There's a number of statements out there. Kevin Harlan, the president of the Atrium, comment, our shared dedication and commitment to providing the highest quality care to our community underscores the importance of such collaborations in the healthcare landscape. Success like this doesn't happen by accident. So it's collaboration, working with them on a daily basis. We really appreciate our relationship with the Atrium. So these fire service EMS professionals have demonstrated courage, professionalism, skill, and most importantly, compassion on June 17th of 23. This award clearly recognizes service excellence on that particular day. However, I'm fortunate to see it every day. So we're all very proud of them, and you should be too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Are we able to shake their hands? Is that what you're saying, Ms. Carter? May we shake your hands?
On your way back to your seat.
Thanks, boys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next, I would like to introduce Mary Lynn Loader from the Miami Conservancy District, and typically the general manager of the Miami Conservancy District comes by annually and gives us an update on the happenings with the Miami Conservancy District. And Mary Lynn, thank you for joining us this evening.
Great, thank you, City Manager, and thank you, Council and Mayor, for allowing me to come. I am going to kind of give you a little bit of an update, specifically the Miami Conservancy District. We're focused on water, communities, and protecting communities, as well as the water resources we have, water from flooding, as well as drinking water, keeping that clean and safe. These are just some pictures of the 1913 flood that we all experienced. Anyone who is, well, none of us were here at that time, but that event resulted in a lot of change for the Great Miami River, the Great Miami River communities. As you can see, there was a devastating amount of water and damage. At that time in 1913, it was estimated that $100 million worth of damage then occurred. And so that's equivalent today of about $2 billion worth of damage. Over 360 lives were lost, potentially more. The census wasn't very good then. So it was a devastating event that really resulted in the Miami Conservancy District being created, and then the flood protection system that we have today. Today, the flood protection system protects about $390 million worth of property value in the city of Middletown alone. It's about $1.8 billion worth of property in Butler County in total. The map here is shown on the screen is the 1913 flood boundaries in Butler County, specifically in the northern part of Middletown area. And the difference in color there is the difference in depth of water. In some areas of northern Butler County, anywhere between 16 and 20 feet of flood waters spread over the area. And so as a result, the Miami Conservancy District was formed and created a flood protection system to ensure this doesn't happen again. In fact, we developed a system so that the areas that did experience inundation of floodwaters are now protected, and that can't happen again because of the infrastructure that we have. So in addition to Middletown, we also protect 21 other cities and 5 counties. So not only Butler County, but also even Hamilton County, Butler County, Warren County, Franklin, Montgomery County, and Miami County. So over 1 million people, 47,000 properties in total, and that also totals up to about $11 billion worth of property that is protected. And the reason why I really emphasize that is because it's 100 years old and we're in need of reinvestment, and we're in the process of something that we will be public noticing soon, and I wanted you all to be aware of what that is. And so I'm just going to go through real quickly in terms of what we have. We have, you look out in Middletown and look at the river and you think of, is that all we have? The levees that we have, and there's a lot more. We actually have 5 large dry dams up in Montgomery County and Shelby County, and those dams help to keep the floodwaters from inundating Middletown and other communities. We also have 55 miles of levees, and those levees are important to keep the water also in the river channel. We also have 35,000 acres of land upstream of those dams that we have the flooding rights to flood those waters and those lands instead of, again, our river towns that are downstream of the dams. We also have 185 floodgates, so we have a lot of infrastructure, and it needs some reinvestment. But here's just some pictures of how we keep the system operating and maintained well by keeping it mowed, by replacing concrete at the dams or the revetment along the river. That's the concrete. And we are also, I'm excited to share with Middletown that just about a month ago we received word from Ohio EPA that a grant that we applied for protection of the Middletown wastewater treatment plant, where the Great Miami River is eroding the levee and approaching your wastewater treatment plant. We received a $4 million grant to be able to address that. So we're really excited about that. That's been on our radar as an issue, a risk for several years, and we applied for it in 22, didn't get it, modified the application a little bit in 23, and we're just notified that we got that. So I'm just really excited to work with your city manager and to get that project off the ground, and we'll have more information on that. It's not like an immediate thing to do because we have some other ducks to get in the row, so to speak, but I'm excited that we have that and can bring that value to Middletown. Our field operations, we have a caretaker who is here right in Middletown every day taking care of the levees and the lands that we have here in Middletown to ensure that the system is well cared for and that we're not going to have any devastation with regards to a failed levee or whatnot. But these are risks that we have. Here's some pictures of just some of the aging infrastructure that we have that needs attention. And in our levee system, the levee system that's along the river that is protecting many of our cities have pipes in them, whether it's stormwater drainage that is from the city or it's a water line that might be along our levee or whatnot. Those are risks to our system. And these are some pictures of just stormwater outfalls that go through our levees, and those stormwater outfalls might be cracked, and if water were to get back in there from the river, that could create a breach or a break of the levee and could compromise the system. The northern picture there, the picture up on the top right-hand side is our Germantown Dam, and you could see some concrete that's missing. Well, that concrete we lost in last March. About a year ago, we had a high water event and water got up, and the aging concrete just does not do well with a lot of water backing up on it. So we've identified a lot of needs that we need to do. We're working on different plans with our engineers as well as with the EMAs and fire departments and whatnot, just sharing different ways to mitigate risks. Also, our dams, in particular, the 5 dry dams that they are not only aging, but they're having to work harder in the last several decades than they have in the first few decades. This chart shows by decade how many times our dams have had to store water. We've actually stored water 2,100 times, over 2,100 times since they've been in operation. And over the last 80 years, the amount of rainfall and runoff that is stored behind those dams has increased over 228%. So again, it's somewhat could be a recipe of a disaster in terms of it's aging concrete, it's aging dam, and it's having to work harder to hold back more water than it has when it was brand new. Another risk we have is our flat revenues. So the way that we're funded by assessments that are by individual property owners as well as the units of government that are protected. So we have 22 cities like Middletown, as well as 5 counties that contribute to the funds that the Miami Conservancy District uses to maintain and improve the system. And our assessments currently we're collecting are based on 2012 property values. We are not allowed by state law to make a modification or it's called a readjustment of the benefits any more frequently than every 6 years. And it's been 12 since we've done an adjustment. We've actually been ordered by the Conservancy Court in 2020 to proceed with a readjustment. And so right now we're collecting revenues based on 2012 property values. And that is in part how our assessments are generated, is based on property value, and then also how a particular property is benefited from the Conservancy District. So if a property had 10 feet of water, it's going to pay different than a property that had 6 inches of water. And I'll talk a little bit about that in just a bit. But we don't have a capital assessment either. We don't have a capital assessment where we're collecting revenue to be able to make improvements to the dams and the levees. So we are working different approaches, and I'm going to share that in just a little bit. But what we do have, we've identified actually over $140 million worth of needs for the dams, for the levees. We recognize we can't do this all at once, and we're trying to take more of a risk-based approach to identify what needs to get done. So the Conservancy Court in February authorized a new spending authority for the Conservancy District of $34.5 million. Now that needs to still go through more steps with public notice as well as with the Conservancy Court for approval, and I'll talk about that in just a bit. But what we're trying to do also is identify and secure more grants. You know, it was great that we got this one that we're going to be able to use in Middletown, but with all of these needs, we're also trying to get some state capital dollars. We've got a request for $9.6 million of state capital dollars. Anything that Middletown can do to help us secure some of those, that could help, again, offset the local burden. We're also working with the Congressman Turner as well as Senator Brown right now. We recently got $200,000 from the bipartisan infrastructure bill, so that's a good thing. But overall, what I really would like to see us be able to do is secure funding, or at least authorization, under the Water Resources Development Act, which would allow us to utilize or get approvals and funding through the Army Corps of Engineers to help us reinvest in the system, because the system that we have was constructed primarily by local dollars. And so we're trying to see how we can get some federal assistance to offset the cost. But so specifically, though, in terms of right now, we are, and we'll always have to be locally funded. We're trying to diversify that, but we have 42,000 properties in the 5 counties and 22 municipalities that contribute to the Miami Conservancy District. And so again, the court ordered us to proceed with a readjustment, and has been done in 12 years. And it's essentially a way to equitably distribute the cost, because as property values or conditions change, then the update of our benefits takes that into account. For example, there's some properties that perhaps are demoed or no longer as high a value as they were previously. Of course, that's not as frequent, but it does happen. And so there is going to be our board will be meeting later this week on Thursday. The Board of Appraisers is another board that reviews the methodology. That they will be also meeting on Thursday. And if the board proceeds with the action to move forward with the readjustment, we will then be public noticing the updated benefits, which people will then have the opportunity to file an exception, it's called, which is an appeal of their benefits, which is also used to calculate assessments. We are going to have a website where people can put their name, address, or parcel ID to see what their updated benefit and assessment is. And there's a 30-day window to be able to make a public request like that. At that time, then we have the court has appointed a magistrate to be able to hear those exceptions, and will make a determination for the Conservancy Court. And just to give you a little bit of more information about how our assessments are calculated, again, they're based on a benefit. So the benefit is what is the property value, the property tax value established by the county auditors, which is 35% of the property value, and then the level of protection. In some areas like Middletown, we have levees, and so those levees are protecting those properties behind the levee fully from a flood. If you're outside of a city that doesn't have a levee, then you're just partially protected. And in our calculation, that's just a different flood factor for the calculation. It's also based on what was the depth of flooding in 1913, because we built infrastructure to ensure that doesn't happen. So the depth of flooding is how we also estimate the benefit and then the calculation. These numbers that are here is just showing a difference of what we are currently, what the average is currently, about $70 a year for an individual property, and the average is anticipated to go up to $120 a year. Again, that's an average, and they're pretty wide. Another example that I have in terms of what the impact would be is this is a $100,000 property. So I'm going to give you 3 different examples of impact on a $100,000 property. So the first one is fully protected. It's behind a levee, and it had 10 feet of flood water on it in 1913. So we built infrastructure to ensure that doesn't happen again. And so that assessment is anticipated to increase about $62 for maintenance, and a new capital assessment of $105. If that $100,000 property had just 6 inches of flood water, so again, we have infrastructure that's ensuring that isn't going to happen, that's about a $12 increase to go up to about $58 a year. And then capital would be about $22. So these are just 2 scenarios of a $100,000 property that is behind a levee. It's fully protected. Another example is a partially protected property. So it's we have those 5 dams that are upstream that are providing that protection, as well as the river channel, but there's no levee. And so just an example of what that would be in terms of an increase is about $7 a year for maintenance, and then $10 a year for capital. Overall, this is just the breakdown of where the distribution comes from, primarily Montgomery County and then Butler County. Based on the maintenance assessment and the capital assessment that the board is considering on Thursday, it's actually 88% of individual assessments will be under $340. With regards to Butler County, I looked at this real quick, about 73% of all of the assessments in Butler County is $135 or less. I recognize that still is a lot for some people, but the cost of protection is far less than the cost of damage after an event. So those are all individual assessments. Now I'm going to just briefly talk about units of government. So that's cities and counties. They also contribute to flood protection because your city, part of and all of your city is protected from flooding from the river, and so you have the ability to not have transportation and utility disruption. Your treatment plant is protected, even more so, hopefully, once we get this project started. and your water plant's not inundated. Emergency services aren't needed as much during flooding events because the river is contained and your community is not damaged. And then also you have the opportunity to economically develop in areas that would otherwise not be able to be developed because of floodplains. For the projection for Middletown for the updated assessments and the updated readjusted benefits, currently Middletown is paying approximately $123,000 a year. This is on Middletown's tax bill, is how Middletown pays this. That's how all of the counties pay it, and all the cities pay it. Is just right through the tax bills, and so that's projected to go up from 123 to about 240. Again, we have not made an adjustment in any of our rates and revenue since 2012. In fact, we're operating in a deficit right now, and we've been operating with capital reserves. The reason we have held off on doing this since 2020 is Butler County was appealing the property values. And so that just got resolved in September of 23. So now we're already planning on moving forward, but fortunately that got resolved. In addition, the capital assessment for Middletown is about $86,000 a year. And so again, just final thoughts. The value of protection is that for many properties, you either don't have to have flood insurance or you have it significantly reduced because of the Miami Conservancy District Flood Protection System. The average residential flood insurance premium is about $900 a year. So again, it's less than what their average assessment is. And even for or industrial or commercial developments, some of those flood insurance, I've heard from insurance brokers, and like in Fairfield, there's some developments going on in the Mill Creek that doesn't have good flood protection, and some of those premiums are like $300,000 for a $50 million property flood insurance, which is crazy, right? So I just want to advise you all of this. Again, the public notice we anticipate to be published, actually based on the papers, it's going to be, I think, March 24th if the board proceeds. And the public notice would be open until April 23rd. And that's the website you can go to look and see what an assessment might be with your name, address, and parcel ID if you are in the flood protection system. And so with that, I'll take any questions.
I had a quick question on example 3 that you had earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Would that scenario fall to, let's say, a homeowner here in the city, but they were not flooded in 1913?
If they were not flooded in 1913, then they should not.
There's zero impact?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yep, and so there was an earlier slide too where it showed the boundaries of the flood boundaries in northern Butler County.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the areas that, those are the area of land that is within the flood protection system. So if you're not protected and did not flood in 1913, then there should not be an assessment.
Okay.
And we have those historical records to go back and look.
All right, thank you. That was, any other questions or comments? That was very useful information. Thank you so much for coming to speak to that. And I think we'll probably get some updates as we go along, announcing this public comment period as well.
Okay, great.
Thank you so
very
much.
Is it possible for us to get a copy of this?
Yes.
well?
Yeah, I think actually this is a PDF, so you do have,
Okay.
I apologize for some of the, by shrinking it to fit this screen, it kind of shrunk the words, and so there's.
Okay, no worries.
Over. But yeah, you could absolutely have it. Okay. I also gave you each a folder, and that has a lot of detailed information also for your information. If my business card's in there, if you want to follow up, just please reach out.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Okay, the last item I have in city manager's report is a report from the Holiday Hoopla Gang. I'd like to invite Evan Kaiser up and have her give a report on how things went this year with the Holiday Hoopla. I'm still trying not to say whoopla because forever I said whoopla. I don't know, for those of you who made it downtown this year, it was absolutely beautiful. between Avon's crew with the hoopla, Downtown Middletown Inc., and some city staff, Ashley Combs. Downtown was probably as beautiful as it's ever been at Christmas time. And it was so good looking, we decided to keep those lights up year round. And I think next year is going to be even better. We'll have more lights and add more things to the downtown. So, Avon?
Thank you, Paul. And thank you, Council, Madam Mayor. Thanks for having me here tonight. For all the new members of Council, at August of last year, the Holiday Hoopla entered into a contract with the city to run the ice rink that was purchased by the city. And so part of that contract is that annually, after the ice rink ends, we do a review of how it went. So I'm excited that it went well. And I get to come to you with some really good news. So try this slide here. To start off the presentation, I like to the heart of the Holiday Hoopla is really building partnerships in the community. And our mission is really to help other nonprofits with their mission. And because it's an ice rink. So if we can give some free skating to help other organizations further their mission and ministry, that's what we would like to do. So some of these organizations we partnered with this year have been historic partners for us, like Carl Gaston's All Pro Dads. I don't know if you guys are aware of that organization. It's a wonderful organization, and we were able to give, he only needed 16 this year, so hopefully we grow every year, free tickets to fathers and their children to come skate for free. CBI Rise Academy, we had another really great year with them, another 190 free skating tickets to the students in that after-school program. It's a great way for them to build community and make memories. We partnered with Feed the Hungry, the toy drive. They hosted their event next to the ice rink, and we gave away 25 half-price tickets, and we, as the Hoopla, paid for the extra staffing to have it open a longer period of time so that they could have that there. Then the Center of Hope for Women and Children. This is a new one to us this year. They wanted 20 free tickets, and we were happy to do that. That was a great memory for them. They went to Light Up Middletown, then they did the ice skating rink, and then they went out, met Santa, and did some things downtown. So it was a big experience for them. We also donate 100 free skating tickets to Shop with a Cop to support their programming. And then a program that we did, this is their second year, but it's really near and dear to my heart, and anyone who's there knows that I'm a babbling idiot at this event, crying emotionally. The principal at Creekview Elementary, who's just amazing, they put out a challenge to their students this year and said, if you increase your reading and math standardized test scores by 50%, you earn a free field trip to the ice rink. And 242 students earned a free trip to the ice rink. And we partnered with Midpoint Library so that the students some got to go to the ice rink, some were at the library doing a craft and watching a movie, and then we'd swap and have hot chocolate. And it is just the reason why the ice rink exists. This is more than just a slab of ice in the middle of Middletown. This is a community building event. This is for kids to make memories. This is for kids to say, I love my town. And I want to thank Councilman West and Mayor Slamka for coming to that. It's a big deal for kids to see you all out there with them, and they were, you probably saw me crying, I was emotional. It's a wonderful thing, and that's why the board and I do what we do to bring this to town. This is the reason Creekview Elementary was amazing. And then our newest community partner is Very Merry Middletown, and I'm very excited to share with you about this partnership. Very Merry Middletown was the brainchild of all of us getting together, sitting at a table, the city, Ashley Combs, Paul, DMI with Jeff Payne and Mary, and then we pulled in Light Up Middletown and kind of came together to say, you know what, we are more than just an ice rink. We're more than just lights. We really need to collaborate and make this a deep destination for people to come and not just go, I'm just gonna go see the lights. We want a rich experience for visitors and our community to come. So Downtown Middletown, Inc., the Holiday Hoopla Light Up, and Middletown City Events all came together to really make a rich experience, which we named Very Merry Middletown, which is now going to be the brand, right? So Hoopla is part of the brand. So when you have a brand that you're putting out in the world, we're going to have this positive name recognition, and Very Merry Middletown is where I want to be. I don't know about you, but Very Merry Middletown, it was wonderful to have the city really join hands with us on this. The beautiful Light Up Middletown that was added to our light display really gave a pop when you drove around the corner, having the carriage rides on the weekend, having that depth of experience. So after you finished skating, you could go ride the carriage rides, go see the lights. It was really great. Primo Italian Steakhouse partnered with us and sponsored Santa and Mrs. Claus, so children could go see them on the weekends. And then Iron Rose did a phenomenal job hosting the Grinch in all of his glory, making sure kids had a wonderful experience with him too. So it was just a really great partnership. Now I want to show you a quick video, and they're going to play it for us.
Very Merry Middletown invites you, your family, and friends to come make memories in historic downtown Middletown this holiday season. Experience ice skating, food and fun, as well as the 24th annual Light Up Middletown. Warm up in our heated igloos and enjoy dinner and drinks in our wonderful restaurants. The Holiday Hoopla Ice Rink opens November 11th and runs through January 15th. Start planning your fun now at holidayhoopla.org.
I don't know about you, but I want to come to Middletown for Very Merry Middletown. It's so great. So this is just an example. Thank you to Alfredo Peters with Higher Faculty and his team for putting together that commercial. That commercial ran on all of our social media, and something that I think it shows really and highlights is that we need to get this message out to a bigger audience than just social media. We really need to work on getting this into our bigger platforms like the TV and things like that, because that's pretty powerful when you look at that. Middletown looks pretty fun. So I do want to highlight what we were able to do at partnering with the city on marketing. We had a lot of print media, which was the Middletonian, Butler County Insider's Guide, the Dayton and Ohio magazine. We partnered with Parent Magazine. They did some half-page ads. We had some online presence with them and some raffles and giveaways we worked with them on. Family Magazine, we were on their online calendar, and they did a social media blitz for us. Our top marketing target was the radio, and 93.3 The Star is one of only 2 Christmas stations in town. So we realized Warm 98 has got that other ice rink down the way. So we decided to go with 93.3 The Star to be our holiday destination radio station, and they did a fantastic job promoting us. The Journal News, we just can't thank them enough for donating. This is their second year of donating ad space for us to put this Very Merry Middletown in the paper from November through January. We were lucky enough to get, Jerry Lewis was able to be featured on WDNT, Living Dayton, to promote Very Merry Middletown and her scavenger hunt that she had planned. And then we have a member, Beth Korab. She works for WCPO and was able to finagle me into Cincy Lifestyles. And that was a wonderful opportunity for us to reach a broader audience, and which is kind of the goal moving forward for next year. And then the Holiday Hoopla website. This is exciting. It shows growth, and people are finding out about us. Our website grew 52% over last year, with site visits of over 22,000. And the average time spent on our site is over 4 minutes. So that's a pretty long time. They're searching, they're looking, they're planning their time with us. Facebook took off too. We had our reach increased 131% over last year, and our visits to our site got up to over 27,000, which was a 195% increase over the year before. So now I heard you talking about, assessing the impact different events have on our city. So there's just 3 of us currently on the staff, so we don't really have the manpower to really get the ripple effect impact. But the local businesses that are directly impacted, and I know this because we pay them. I write checks to them. So I know that they've been impacted in some way. But there are also all the gas stations, the restaurants, around town, where either people who are coming to help us as workers or people who are coming to visit or going to these places. The other exciting thing is we had 15 employees this year. The demographic for these employees were 13 were Middletown residents. 1 was from Fairfield, 1 was from Centerville. But the really great thing is there's 7 are local high school students, 2 are teachers here locally. We've got some college students and 2 are others. So what this speaks to is that our students, our young people want to stay in town over their holiday break. They're having fun, whether they're skating with their friends on the rink or they're working the ice rink. They're building an experience in their hometown that they can talk about and share with others. So it's a really positive thing. And this is a picture of one of the ice rink workers helping the kids skate. It's a wonderful thing to watch youth with other youth. All right, now to the good news. Season 23 versus season 22. We had, and general admission sales increased 45% over last year. The group rate sales increased 39%. Skate with Santa attendance went up 172%, and Igloo rentals went up 22%. This year we added skate lessons, which gave us an extra $220. We added skate aid rentals. This was huge. This was a big impact on our sales, over $5,000 and added revenue to that. So for our net rink sales over 2022 had a 51% increase over last year. So it's happening, people. They're finding out about us. It's a good thing. We're growing. It's a good thing. So as you can see from this chart, it's going in the right direction. So ice rink growth, from the year we started in 2021 to currently, we made only 20 or 32,000, a little over 32,000 the first year. We made 67,000 this year. And we're estimating about 87, almost 88,000 next year at a conservative 33% growth rate. We're hoping we blow that out of the water, and it's a lot more, but I just wanted to be a little conservative on that one. But we're growing at a very, steady and impressive rate. The other thing that's good news is that this chart, our annual operating cost, is also going in the right direction. It's going down. So in 2021, when we started this, it was a massive undertaking, but like many of you have ever started a business, those are your first 2 years are the toughest. So those were close to $500,000. But now our operation costs were only $230,000, and then we're estimating it to be close to $176,000 next year. So it'll just keep getting lower and lower. The 2023 season funding, 100% of the net rink revenue, so all the money that the rink made went to pay the ice rink management company for their management fee and payroll and liability. So why, you might ask? So historically, we have to pay, the city, we have a contract with the city to run the ice rink, store it, make sure it's maintained, all of that. But we don't really run it. We have to pay a management company who actually knows how to run the Zamboni and do all the things. And historically, that has been $65,000 for the rink management company, plus about $20,000 payroll. And since we had a smaller window of time this year, because we didn't get the green light till August, I couldn't raise that kind of money in that short period of time. So I did make a deal with this amazing new ice rink company that managed our rink this year. And I said, if you'll take a risk on me and manage this year, you can have all the revenues, because I thought it would probably be about the same price, and so it was. So they did make that $67,000 was their lump sum payment. And as we go year to year, we'll renegotiate that. So as they make more money, we'll start to put some of that toward the payment of the chiller and things like that. So that is up for renegotiation annually. The remaining cost to operate, the $161,000 or plus, was paid for by the grants that we've written, corporate sponsorships, citizen donations, and in-kind donations. The 2023 season funding, we did have a huge decrease of 54% decrease in funding and donor funding. And there's some contributing factors to that we've kind of weeded out. We had the late approval, which resulted in a shorter fundraising window. The community has a perception now that the Holiday Hoopla is a city-run and financed event, which makes sense because they think the city bought the ice rink, so the city's running it. Why do we need to donate to it? It's a city thing. So that's something we got to fight against. The other perception is that all the ice rink revenue goes to the holiday hoopla. Well, they're making money there. They got to be able to pay for it, you know. So it's just, we have to educate how that goes down. So we are already writing grants. We're already fundraising and pursuing new sources of revenue for this upcoming year. But I wanted to give a big shout out and thank you to John Ferrando and Sharon Flagel, Ben Earls. They're all on the board of the Holiday Hoopla, all their tireless efforts and hard work. These last 3 years, we could not have done it without them. Tom Pressler, I don't know if you're aware of Tom. He is a citizen who was very involved in Midfest. He's an incredible man who just jumps in and does whatever we need. And he made all the beautiful benches we have now and did all the electricity for the lights around the rink. Rick Priest is with Cohen. He is a spectacular asset to have. You know, you name it, he gets it done for us. Cody Gertz, Joe Mulligan, Beth Korab, Monica Polo, they are all part of the volunteer team that help to tear lights down or do social media or help with marketing. Jim Papakirk is our godsend lawyer who really helps to get things done for us. And without Ken Cohen and Greg Martin, their in-kind donations are the reason we can do this. They really kind of come through whenever we need them. And our citizen donors, we can't thank them enough for believing in having a social, you know, an amenity that's open to any socioeconomic person in this community, no matter what race, color, age. If they believe that this is needed, it's a place where we can build community. It's a place where we can have a shared positive experience. So thank you to the citizens. Those public works guys, Charlie, his folks, Ed, his folks, and Rob, they're all just, we're very lucky to have our public works guys. They're fantastic. And then the marketing team, Ashley, Paul, Jerry Lewis, we just couldn't have, this year was a success because we did it as a team. And so thank you for all of your teamwork. And I think it showed. And we can't thank all of these sponsors enough. Many of them have been with us from the beginning when we were asking for crazy amounts of money. And they believe in this project and see the impact it has on the community. Now let's look ahead to 2024. Our ice rink management company has a lot of ice rinks that they manage. So when we had our end of the season kind of breakdown of what we could do better or what we did well, opening on Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day was one of the things that kind of popped up that we really need to be open so that our community can have an experience on the rink on those days. We were kind of worried about staffing, and now we're like, you know what, let's just try it. So we're going to open those days. The other thing that's a goal of our board is to start a youth board of directors. You know, looking to our youth, many of them are looking to go out of high school straight into work or go to college, and it's important for them to have something on their resume saying they were involved in things. I just getting ready to send my oldest to college, and I didn't realize how important these things are. So this giving the youth an opportunity to really have a say in this event and this program, and I love working with youth. It energizes you. They've got great ideas. Putting together a youth board is one of the top things on our priority list to try to do for this year. The other thing is expand our Holiday Hoopla board. Like I said, there's only a few of us, so as our attendance in this organization grows, we really need to grow the folks who are helping us plan the future of this project. And we'd welcome an ombudsman from council to sit on our board to help us, you know, really bridge that gap of communication. This is your ice rink, so you might want some input on the future and how we look at it. So I think having that communication would be wonderful if one of you would want to be that ombudsman. Addressing some security issues from 2023, that's going to be another area we look at this year. We almost squeaked out of it without any vandalism, but it happened at the very, very end. We had a little bit over $15,000 worth of vandalism. All of the igloos were ransacked. They were sliced, the plastic was sliced, and several of our light fixtures were either sliced or like hung on and kind of disformed. So, but that happened the last week. But we did have more cameras this year. We had 4 more cameras, and when those cameras were on with those floodlights, we were golden. We had no incidences of any vandalism or anything like that, but it's when that electric got taken down because we needed to take down the rink that they saw those lights weren't coming on, I think, and that's when the party happened down at the ice rink. That wasn't really welcome. Then we had a couple incidences with homeless down there with the lighting decor folks who who were putting up the lights with some, verbal and physical kind of harassing behavior from our indigent population. And then the manager at the ice rink had several occasions where she was stalked by 2 homeless individuals, that they would be there when she would get there at noon, and then they'd be there waiting for when they were done. And then she got trapped in a restroom at one time because they were kind of waiting for her. And we did call the police, and one was arrested because there was a warrant out for them. So I think we just have to manage like when there's a police presence for our staff and to make it safe, because she's like a 25-year-old young woman. And we did have extra people on, but they're just young. They're high schoolers, so we just have to look at how we manage that moving forward. And then finally, really get into just some discussions with the city on the plan for the permanent location. We have amazing people on our team, like Ben is an architect, we've got a landscape architect, and then the wisdom from this new management company. They manage multiple, Bryant Park, the Pacers one by the Pacers Stadium, Chicago. So to help us know, as we're planning this new park, where should the Zamboni go? Where should the chiller go? So that when it's beautiful when the rink is up, but it's also beautiful and feasible when the rink is not up. And maybe as we move looking toward the future of the outdoor roller rink, how will that transition to? Because we'll need a skate barn and a concession stand and restrooms. So those kind of things, looking forward to working with the city on really getting those logistics down. So finally, I want to leave you with a couple testimonials. I'm not going to read them all to you, but as a team, we are blessed with, during the season, getting a lot of text messages and getting a lot of Facebook messages about, thanking us for what we do. But I want to share this thank you to all of you on council, all the city administration, all the public works folks who help us, because without all of you and the shared vision, this would not be a thing for our city. So I'm just going to read a couple of them that really say what I think I would love to say. Elizabeth Kay said, "My grandkids love to go ice skating because they love the time spent with family and friends, and just a chance to let go of the everyday worries of the ugly that kids face these days. Holiday Hoopla gave them a chance to just be kids and laugh and smile like all kids should be able to do." Kelly R. said, "I love bringing my family to skate at Hoopla Ice Rink. It's our city at its very best. No matter what race, age, or economic situation, or where you live in town, we're all having fun together, building community. This is what I remember growing up in Middletown. The Hoopla is bringing community back." And finally, Elizabeth B. said, "My 5 adult children live all over the U.S. and come home with their families for the holidays. We had so much fun at the Hoopla today. Just wanted to let you know how much we appreciate your hard work putting it together and having this opportunity so close to home. You're amazing." So I say to you all, you're amazing. We're building something great for our community, and it adds to all the other things our community's doing now. The Jerry Lewis's, parades and the events she's having. When we do this, we're giving our people a reason to stay here, to move back here, to love Middletown. So thank you for your time, thank you for your support, and we look forward to a really rockin' 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Avin. Before you sit down, you had mentioned that you are looking for volunteers, board members. If people are interested, where can they go to sign up to find out more about how to volunteer?
That's a great question. They can go to our website to volunteer, but I am putting a new board member application. I just wrote it all up, and it's going to be, John's electronically making that for me. I just did it on a Word document. So it'll be on our website under Become a Board Member, and they can click that, and we'll do some, review some board stuff and see if because we want lots of different areas to be covered on that. So yeah, I would love to have more people on board. So yeah, any other questions?
Any other questions from council? Right.
All right.
Ms. Kaiser, thank you so much.
Thank you, Avin. I have to thank you and your team and a few others for their perseverance on this project. Councilman Farrell, Councilman Muterspaw, Council Member Talmoon, Monica Thomas, and Mayor Condrey. If it wasn't for their perseverance and pushing me on this project, we wouldn't have had the fun time we did. Because, as you know, at times I was pessimistic about this project, but their perseverance pushed me over the finish line, and we came together as a team, and it really was an awesome thing, and it's going to be an awesome thing for the future.
Well, we all know firemen can't ice skate. So
I
we
can't.
expect,
And
yeah.
Brody pushed me over too.
Sorry, Snively. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Wonderful, thank you. And is that all for the city?
And that's
manager?
all I have this evening.
Okay. So that includes the city manager report. Thank you, Mr. Lawley. The next item on the agenda is the public hearing for the 2024-2025 Community Development Block Grant, also known as CDBG. Assistant Law Director Brody Conover will explain the public hearing agenda and how the evening will go. Mr. Conover, you have the floor.
Yep, thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of council, I know that at least 4 of you knew and haven't been through a public hearing before, at least from that side of the dais. So just wanted to talk with you all about kind of what that is and how it's a little bit different than just the normal meeting that you'll be having. So typically, a public hearing will occur as it relates to most commonly in front of you for zoning reasons. We're a little bit unique here, and the reason we're here tonight is for the CDBG grants or the action plan that we have to do every year. But the process for the public hearing will essentially be the same. And so the way that we would recommend, and I think we have advocated for in the past, is maybe a little bit differently than it's been done, but we just think this is kind of the best practice moving forward. So similar to the meeting, the mayor will preside over the public hearing. Just kind of logistically, process-wise, typically you will first hear from staff as like kind of a staff report. So again, zoning is going to be the most common reason that a public hearing is occurring. So from them, you may hear from zoning staff or something like that presents essentially the staff's perspective on the issue before you guys. Then you would next hear from the applicant. Again, that's normally going to be the person that has applied for some sort of zoning, submitted some sort of zoning change or a PUD or something along those lines. Tonight, again, a little unique, that the staff and the applicant are the same person, so you'll be hearing just from one person tonight on that. But again, typically you're going to hear from staff and then the applicant, and then we open it up to anyone in the audience, in the public, and give them the opportunity to speak. So unlike public comment or citizen comment, there are really no restrictions, that might be a little too far, but there's no time restriction, so we'll hear from someone as long as they have words to say on the issue. So we don't have the 4-minute kind of limit that we would have normally. People will be sworn in because it's a formal kind of, it's really like a quasi-judicial process where you guys are acting as more of not a judge, but a judicial commission rather than on your normal kind of city council role. And so we would want to have everyone sworn in. And so typically our recommendation is you could do it individually, but sometimes it's easier to just do a cattle call at the beginning of, asking anyone, hey, is someone interested? If you're thinking about speaking tonight, please stand up. The mayor would then swear everyone in collectively. And then we would first hear for people that are proponents of the issue or the application before you all. Then we would hear from opponents, and then we might hear from neutral parties or folks that don't necessarily support or oppose either side. But that way it's kind of very clear as people are speaking, kind of are they for or against it. And they would come up similar to in citizen comment, they would say their name, their address, and then we would just ask that they also reaffirm that they've been sworn in. So that way for the record, it's very clear. And the reason we need it for the record, I'll get to in a little bit. So once what I'll say the public hearing side of it, the public comment side of it has ended, you'll then deliberate. So you guys, again, are acting kind of as a quasi-judicial body. And so you will be deliberating on the issue before you. Publicly is always our recommendation. There's actually a case pending at the Supreme Court right now, whether you can go into executive session to do that. But we always recommend to do it in public. And the reason for that, again, oftentimes in zoning, but even outside of that, is there is an opportunity to appeal the decision that you guys make as this kind of quasi-judicial body. And we want to have a very clear transcript. That's why we swear people in. That's why we have everyone identify themselves. We will record it. And then if we have to, we will make literally a written transcript with a court reporter that we then would have to provide to the court. But the reason we like to have deliberations in public, that you publicly deliberate or discuss, is that way it's very clear the reasons for your guys' decision on the record, and that way we aren't left guessing, the applicant's not left guessing. And so that's kind of just the process. Again, tonight's going to be a little unique because the staff and the applicant are going to be the same person. And there may be people in the crowd that are here to, opine on the CDBG plan. Maybe not, I don't know. But that's really just kind of the process. Again, you guys are all new, wanted to have that for you. So it's obviously at our normal regular meeting, but it is a special kind of unique process within that. So we will open and then close the public hearing kind of at the conclusion of that all. But if there's any questions, happy to answer those. But otherwise, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, great. So if we are doing the swearing in, I will need the verbiage for that, or you can do the swearing in.
I'm happy to do that, yeah.
Right, fantastic. So for anyone who wishes to speak this evening in support of or opposed to the CDBG grant, please raise your hand so I can see you. Okay, we have one, so would you please go ahead and do the swearing in?
Yeah, so I don't know where they are, but they can just raise their, they can just raise their right hand and then I guess repeat after me. So you would say, I, and then your name. Do solemnly swear that the testimony I am going to give tonight is nothing, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And you just say, yes, that's perfectly fine. So then when you come up tonight, just make sure you state your name, address, and verify that you've been sworn in. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was the first item. There are 8 items for the public hearing. So the swearing in was the first item. The second item and the third will be the staff report / applicant. So I would ask Ms. Mueller to come to the podium, please.
Good evening.
Evening.
So we're going to just review the CDBG annual action plan so that everyone can kind of see that. Again, Middletown is an entitlement community, which means it gets its own allocation of dollars from HUD in the form of a community development block grant. We do not have our final allocation for the year that's coming up starting May 1. So for the annual action plan, we use the previous year as the working number until we get that final number from HUD. That should be any time now. Last year it was on March 1st, and so we haven't seen it yet, but I imagine it will be coming soon. So the amount that we have used for this year's estimation is $742,828. For CDBG, there are several requirements that HUD puts forward for these dollars. They have to meet a national objective. You can see those 3 national objectives there. And the monies have to be used for eligible spending activities. There are a couple unique things that happen with CDBG. They do have some caps or limitations on certain categories of spending. 15% is a limitation for public services, 20% on planning and administration, and they also require that 70%, a minimum of 70% of the dollars are used to benefit low and moderate income persons. As I've shared in previous work session, Middletown has historically used 100% of CDBG to benefit low and moderate income residents. A little bit about the planning process. Back in 2020, the city submitted its consolidated plan, which is a 5-year plan that says this is how we plan to use our CDBG funds between 2020 and 2025. It's a full plan that goes in front of HUD, and then every year we do an annual action plan that delineates how we're going to use the dollars for the upcoming year, and that's what's before you today. This is year 5 of the consolidated plan, this annual action plan. The plan starts May 1 of 2024 and will run through April 30th of 25. There are several citizen participation requirements that HUD mandates. One is that there's a 30-day comment period, which we're in now. That makes the plan, the annual action plan, available to the public. It's available by coming to the city building. They can request copies of it. The public can also see all of that online. It's on the city's website. Any written comments are submitted to the city and are addressed and included in the annual action plan. The public hearing is also part of that process, so that's what we're here doing tonight, is that requirement. So when the plan was done back in 2020 and submitted, there was a lot of process that went into developing that plan, and what came back were 9 specific priorities that were identified as the most important and were included in the consolidated plan, and these are the priorities that were included in that consolidated plan. Every year, the city gives opportunity for the public and nonprofits in the community that serve Middletown to apply to use some of these dollars. They are asked to show how their projects fulfill the priorities or meet the priority needs that were identified in the plan. That request for proposal was made available November 29th of last year. There was a public meeting that was held on December 12th where we go through the process, go through the application, available to ask questions or answer questions related to the application or the process. Those proposals were due on January 26th of this year. 10 outside proposals, meaning outside the city, were received, plus there was one city-led project that brought the total of requests to $898,409. 6 activities have been recommended, covering 5 of the priorities for this next annual action plan. So these were the applications and the amounts that were submitted and received by the city. And the recommended activities that are included in the current draft of the annual action plan. The priority number 1 is to address distressed and dilapidated housing through emergency home repair, and 2 projects are recommended to fill that priority. $20,000 for self and $60,000 for people working cooperatively. Priority number 3 is to address beautification and visual appeal in low and moderate income areas. Oakland was prioritized in the consolidated plan, and there is a city project for Oakland Park that is slated for this annual action plan in the amount of $402,839. There are 2 other recommended activities on the slide. One is for CBI, which is Community Building Institute. They do 2 projects that fulfill 2 priorities. One is workforce development, and the second is safe activities for youth. And $86,424 is the working number and recommendation for that organization. And then priority number 9 is fair housing as a priority, and there are 2 entities that applied for funding. One is Housing Opportunities Made Equal Home, and the recommendation is $10,000 for that amount, and then legal aid for $15,000. So this is kind of a snapshot of the entire annual action plan budget as it sits now, and it totals the expected $742,000. Again, these are working numbers until we get that final allocation from HUD. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
First one, did you receive any written communications?
No, not yet. Those come into the city, and then those are typically forwarded over to us, but I have not seen any written communications yet.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions or comments right now? Is that possible to do this right now, or do we just go on to the next part?
Yeah, you certainly, as council, can certainly ask questions if you'd like. You can raise them in your deliberations and bring the applicant back up, however you'd like to handle it.
Okay, I think we will just go ahead and then move on to the next part, and we can raise our questions during deliberations. Does that sound good? All right. Okay, thank you, Ms. Mueller. So that was parts 2 and 3. So part 4 of the public hearing, we will go ahead and ask for anybody who wishes to speak in support to please come to or raise your hand so I can see you. In support? Nope. Okay, so that's that. Number 5 would be anybody who wishes to speak in opposition. Please raise your hand so I can see you. Okay. Mr. Conover, if that's not in support or opposition, it's just a basic comment, is that also just allowed?
Yeah, so we would do a support, opposition, and then kind of a neutral.
Neutral. Yeah. Okay, anybody who's interested in neutral, please come down to the dais. or to the podium, excuse me. And then when you come down, please come to the microphone. You'll have to go ahead and state your name, address, and confirm that you have been sworn in. And please speak into the microphone so we can hear you.
My name is Jennifer Chen. I live at 23 Santa Fe Road.
Will you please
I'm
confirm?
sworn in.
Yes.
Okay. I have numbers I'm going to talk about. I'd like to give you a copy, if that's okay.
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, first, just a little thing I wanted to clarify. In the staff report under alternatives, it says it has to be submitted as soon as possible, so you don't lose the funds. And I think to clarify, first, you have until April 23rd to submit it. But second, there's a final drop dead deadline of August 16th, and it's after that that the city would lose your funds. So it's not imminent. Second, I'd like to make you aware, in the 2020 to 2025 consolidated plan, the number 3 priority states Oakland neighborhood. It states that that's the priority for the 5-year period. And it says, in those, it says Oakland neighborhood, not Oakland Park. So accordingly, the 2020, 21, 22, and 23 action plans, and this one, and the 2021 is included at the end of the consolidated plan. In that, they allocated $1,558,703 for the Oakland neighborhood. In 2023, that includes this year also. In 2023, the city asked council to reallocate $587,772 of this to build and resurface pickleball courts and a shelter in Lefferson Park. So I would like to know how much of that remaining almost $1 million that was officially earmarked in the action plans in accordance with the consolidated plan has actually been spent in the Oakland neighborhood. I have a list also of all of the CDBG funds that were reallocated for the pickleball courts in Lefferson Park, and it's 23, 22, 21, and 2020. And I think most of those were meant for Oakland, but it's also got 2020 coronavirus funds. It's got some for 2019 and 2018, which you question. And there's also an unspecified CDBG of 19,000. I'd be curious to know how many of those were earmarked for the Oakland neighborhood. So I'd ask that you look into this and that you put in place strict controls to see that the projects in this annual action plan are spent as specified. And a couple of final points. First thing is that I would like to see that the city retain some of that 20% administrative money, because city staff does a lot of work in implementing these activities and plans. And that's what that money is meant for. And it shouldn't really be coming out of your general funds that we citizens pay. That's part of the grant that you get. And finally, it's been said that the link to the plan is on the main page. I wanted to clarify. I mean, it's very difficult to find. I've found it many times, and I still couldn't find it today. To find it, you have to go to the, it's not on the main page of Development Services either. To find it, you have to go to the main page of, main city page, Government tab, Departments, brings up a menu on the left. You have to know to pick Development Services. which brings up another blue menu. And in that list, it says community development. When you hover over that term, it brings up another menu, and at the top, it says community development block grant. So if you made it that far, you would think that's where to click. But when you click it, you just go to a page with general information about CDBG program. And there's no link on that page to the plan. To get to it, you have to click on the actual words, community development, in that menu, not the next menu with the CDBG on it. And that takes you to a page which you have to scroll down at least halfway to find a link to it. And then the link of where to send your comments is just very tiny and some tiny little writing just above that. I think that needs to be more clear for the public. As part of the public participation plan, I think that would be appropriate. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so at this point, the applicant can come up one last time if the applicant so wishes. Ms. Mueller, would you so wish? Oh, okay, well so that's the sixth part. The seventh part of tonight then is to go ahead and close the public comment section. Before we do that, we just want to make sure, are there any other public comments this evening? Okay, seeing none. Before we move on to deliberations, has anyone else from staff received any written communications? Yes? We have? Ms. Skank, Clerk of Council, we've received more communications about the CDBG block grant?
I think I've received an email.
Okay, is that included, will that be included, Mr. Conover, would that be included in the packet then? How do we go about communications? Do we read them? What's the next step?
So if it would be part of the public comment period that the CDBG folks consider, right? There's as part of the, I say open hearing, but there's a month-long public comment period, and it would just be part of that consideration.
Okay, so that would go, everything gets compiled and that goes into that packet.
That's exactly right.
I will be sure and forward that to Ms. Mueller and Deborah Wells to make sure that that gets included.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that being said, I just want to make it clear, this does conclude the public comment portion of the public hearing. Next and last, we have the council deliberations. We encourage you to stay, though there will be no further comment from the public. So at this time, if the council has anything to say, questions, comments for Ms. Mueller among ourselves, this is a time to do it.
I have a few questions. I remember when the talk started for Oakland Park, and so I'm wondering what happened that we didn't start working on that project.
I think that's a question for staff.
Not to shortchange you, but I know one of the major things is getting it put into the historic district, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Oakland has been a complicated process since it was originally identified as the target neighborhood. We are, I believe, 4 city managers from when that neighborhood was originally chosen as the target neighborhood for this consolidated plan. And as each new city manager and each new city council came in, there were differing ideas of what should be done with that money, whether it should be focused more on housing in that neighborhood, whether there should be park upgrades. We've seen everything from infill housing projects to concept plans for Oakland Park. So it's really been kind of an ebb and flow from each regime to regime on what the priority was, how they thought those dollars should be spent. We have put out several RFPs for those processes over the years, and either we did not get the responses that we anticipated, or we did not have potentially the council support to move certain projects forward with the vendors that submitted RFP responses for the projects we were trying to run at those times. So as the years go on, the CDBG funds have a deadline. We have to spend so much of that allocation. We have a timeliness test that we run up against every year. And so as we run through those projects and this project either changes focus, the priority shifts, or we didn't find a vendor that they wanted to move a certain project forward on, those funds, not those specifically, but the totality of CDBG has to be spent. And so as we run up against that timeliness deadline every year, that's when we come back, we look at what is eligible as expenses, what projects we have completed that meet these goals that are laid out in the consolidated plan and the annual action plan. And that is when we come back to council, and council gets to make that determination on whether or not we're going to be able to reallocate funds for other projects. We have completed infrastructure and paving projects in the Oakland neighborhood that were funded, reimbursed from CDBG, but not necessarily some of the projects that were originally envisioned for this neighborhood.
I'm looking at the this statement about the pickleball court.
Yes, ma'am.
And my understanding that the pickleball court, that the Pickleball Association has tournaments, and with the money they collect in the tournaments, they pay for all the repairs and things that they need. So what made us take money to give, to pay for, build 9 new pickleball courts and build a new shelter at the pickleball court?
I can't speak to that project specifically.
The money they take in does not totally cover cost of what is needed for the repair of those courts. This was presented to Middletown City Council in December of 2023, brought forward by a member of City Council in 2023, and the council unanimously voted to make those funds available for that project.
So if you have funds designated for a particular purpose, then it's okay to use them otherwise in other areas. Like she said, Oakland Park was picked by, I remember you telling me someone designated Oakland Park, because I was asking why Oakland Park, and you said something, maybe the state or some.
We were talking about the national registration for the neighborhood itself. That was by the state.
Right, okay. Yeah. So there would not be any problems using the funds otherwise?
Mindy can talk to that about neighborhood improvements.
It is eligible. I mean, I think with the consolidated planning process, it's understood that this is a plan over the 5-year period. It isn't ineligible. It is a low moderate income area where the pickleball courts are. It was for the larger neighborhood beautification priorities and goals. So we have to come back and explain to HUD why that shift. But I think it's all the reasons that Ms. Wells said. There's just been a lot of different things that have piled up over time since this plan was put out. And so that is an eligible thing. That's what we're looking for. Is it an eligible HUD expense, and does it check the boxes like a low and moderate income neighborhood? All of those kinds of things is what we assess it for. But that's what the city decided to shift and do that. And so as long as they're eligible, that's something that HUD allows.
Okay, so what happened to the rest of the money? We still have the money, or did you use all of it that they were given for this project, for the Oakland Park project?
It was designated, so there wasn't money given that was taken back. There's a plan like the one you have in front of you now, where we do this process of here's what the plan is for this next year. As the city priorities change or different projects come to light as a priority, that's where there's been some shift in how the funds have been allocated. So I can get you detailed plans for each of the years and how those dollars were spent. So there's no money that was given and then taken back. It's just been part of the planning process. This is where in the consolidated plan, Oakland was the priority, and that has shifted. As long as it continues to be filling the priorities and it's used for low mod income neighborhoods, there is the ability to be flexible, and council ultimately decides that piece, how you want to allocate those dollars. But I'm happy to give you a breakdown of over the whole consolidated plan where those dollars have come in, so you can see it at one time, if that would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, and part of this gets a little bit complex because with any sort of government funds, they have an expiration date, right? So like, for example, I'll pick on Chief Snively. If we say, hey, we're going to earmark $700,000 for him to go buy a new fire truck, but there aren't any fire trucks, to purchase, but it's set up for a fire vehicle fund, he might come back and say, hey, that funding is going to expire before we can purchase a fire truck, but we can go buy a couple new ambulances, for example. So the money has intent to be spent on something, but as long as it, if an intended project isn't ready to go, that funding needs to shift to something in that same category per se before it expires, and then we don't have anything. So that's where, like, when they go back to HUD to justify why it would move from, a specific project like Oakland Park to, well, now it's going to be Lefferson Park pickleball courts, for example, if that makes sense.
And Mindy, you could speak to the pickleball project specifically came out of different pots of money that we were trying to spend down because of that timeliness issue. It wasn't just one fund in particular.
Yes, that's correct. And that's the breakdown that you probably have in front of you, is we pulled money from the different years that were remaining, and we're able to make that larger project happen using the different allocations of years so that the timeliness, so that we're spending the money in a timely fashion.
What is a timely fashion? Because some of this goes back to 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23. So it looks like we have a lot of time.
They're not as concerned. Yes, I hear what you're saying. They have, the rule for HUD is 1.5 times your annual allocation is the limit of what you can have available. So they're not as concerned about the old money of 2018 as they are the amount overall.
So it's not really the time, it's the amount.
Yes, they call it timeliness, but yes, that's more what they're concerned about.
Thank you. Does that conclude your question, Ms. Carter?
So we're back at Oakland Park again. Okay. So what will happen this time if I don't know what prevented us from doing anything later?
Well, I think it was just a shift in priorities that city administration and council had from when the consolidated plan was done, and then lots of things happened to kind of move it to where it's still on the list of priority neighborhoods. But I think there is more of a definitive plan now for some things that are going to be done in Oakland so that this will finally move forward. I just think there were other things that were prioritized sooner. And so some of those funds that had been designated to Oakland Park are now, we're looking at doing in this next year.
I want to piggyback off of that. I do know that our port board is going in a really positive direction with the facelifts that they're going to do in Sherman in the Goldman Park. Charlie Anderson with Public Works, we're next on his list, and the park board is going to assist with Oakland Park next and getting estimates so that we can move forward with positive renovations there this year. Start there. It'll probably carry over into next year. It just depends, funding and what we want to pick first based on the neighborhood feedback. We worked with Middletown Connect on getting some really good feedback to what neighbors want to see there. So we look forward to getting that actually moving this year.
That's actually part of the question I had as well, because if we talk about shifts in priorities, my question is, what did the public say? Because if council and staff have a shift, if we have that public comment period every year, correct, and we have the 5-year consolidated, I guess that would shift less. So it sounds like, what did the public say? What did they want? And stick to those ideas. And that should make it easier to stick to the plan. That's what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
I hear what you're saying. I think that that's the ideal, is that we do a plan and then we have the annual action plan supports that larger consolidated plan. I do think there are things that, in this particular case, that prevented Oakland from moving forward sooner. So I think that's, ideally, that's the way we want to see it happen, but things happen and bids happen and different priorities rise up. So I think ideally what you're suggesting is the way that we want to see it mostly work, but there always does need to be some level of flexibility as priorities change. But I don't disagree with your approach to that.
Okay,
That's
so
the
that,
ideal.
so that sounds like usually that's how it works. It usually pretty much works just like that. The public has their input, and then we work from there with the 5-year plan, we work from there with the 1-year plan, and that's how it goes. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I did have a question also. During the work session on the 15th, we had talked about the possibility of speaking with SELF and PWC to see what their threshold capacity was for this year's action plan, just the 1 year.
I have had conversations with both of those entities. So that you're aware, they were also very interested in coming and putting a presentation in front of you so that you can understand a little bit more, and so the public at large can as well, what they do, what kind of services they offer, how they keep those homeowners in their homes here in Middletown, how they leverage the funds that we give them to bring dollars to Middletown to support our residents. So they're very amenable to that. I'm happy to work with the city manager to have a presentation in front of you so that you can ask any questions that you might have to them. PWC believe that they have the capacity in this next program year. They did ask for $60,000, which is what was recommended funding for them. They believe they can accommodate up to $100,000. And SELF, originally, apparently their board asked for $20,000. There was some miscommunication with their application. They thought it was $30,000. I did speak to the gentleman from SELF, and he said they believe they can handle between $55,000 and $60,000 this year if you're agreeable to upping their allocation for the program year 24-25.
But again, public services is only eligible for 15% of what the city receives. So if you're going to take from, you know, some of these areas, you could affect, you know what I mean? Like if you wanted to up home, for example, you know, then you're gonna be within that 15% cap for the groups that are in public services. So it might take some from CBI.
PWC and SELF don't fall under the public service cap.
Right, but I mean
so
for
any
like
money, the shifting that you give to them would come out of the public infrastructure budget that we had for Oakland Park.
Right. Well, I'm specifically mentioning like home, for example, or Legal Aid of Cincinnati, CBI. Those are all in that 15% category. PWC and SELF, like we discussed in the session last week, you know, like for example, we were amenable to SELF getting an extra 10K, but then again, now we're taking 10K from Oakland Park.
That's correct.
So it's a dime, you know, a dime one day, you know, 10 cents another way. So when we look at this, how do we want to earmark the funds? It's still one pot of money.
And perhaps we should go ahead and speak to that now, just have that conversation now. Thank you, Ms. Wells. So it seems that, that both PWC and SELF are prepared to actually raise their threshold for this year. PWC could raise it by about 40,000. It looks like SELF could raise it also by about 40,000, they're saying. So I guess my comment is, given the delays for Oakland that we've had, and it looks like not as much has been done over the years, perhaps we might want to add 10,000 to the original ask for SELF that Mr. West brought up, take 10,000 from Oakland, then keep that how it is for this year, and then moving forward, we can have that conversation of, I think last time it was said about 200,000 for house improvements. What does the rest of council think, or do you have a different take on this?
I'm for it because people have to live in their homes longer. They have to let their equipment go past what's, the term you have to always say is, or I had to say is it's outlived the manufacturer's expected lifespan. So these programs are to help them on their appliances, meaning their water heater, their furnace, their panels, their plumbing and such. So when people have to live in their homes longer, these programs will be there for that repair that is a necessity, especially for our older folks who are on fixed incomes. So that's what I'm seeing with these programs, and I'm correct on thinking that. So I think because inflation has affected everything, including when you have to buy something new. It is going to be 10 to 20% more when you have to buy something and have it installed. So if these things can be maintained and be repaired, and they're still safe, that's what these programs are for, and especially in an emergency situation. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. Given also what he's just said, then to ask you, do you think that we should be maybe taking a little more and putting it towards SELF and PWC, also given that some maybe of the parks might not cost as much as we thought this year? Would you prefer to just keep the 10,000, or what do you see as an appropriate increase for either or both?
What they were asking for is not unreasonable, because the pandemic put a lot of manufacturers being pretty much caught flat-footed. But then inflation, and we're at a higher inflation. Normal inflation is 3%. So parts are always going to go up that much. Now just imagine you get caught flat-footed 4 years ago, and now manufacturers start making them, then they start making them again, and then inflation hits. So now these parts, if you can get them, are going to even cost more for that. So whatever we all feel is reasonable, what they're asking for is not unreasonable.
I guess in my mind, to your point, Councilman Horn, we're falling behind if we're staying where we're at in today's inflationary world. And we look at the property tax increases that we as the state have put on people that are barely able to make it anyways. For this year, I'm comfortable with in the range of, they've not proven yet that they can take on that amount of money, but I'm okay to bet on that. So let's say that SELF's at 30 right now. What if we raise SELF to 40, for example, and PWC's at 60? What if we then raise that to 80, which kind of gives where we were at and where they want to be next year? So that kind of gives them some time to brace up. That's because I know in talking to City Manager Lawley, and Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't sound like we can really get that 402, 839 spent anyways this year. And really we can make a park whatever we want it to be. I mean, my whole thing is I believe in infrastructure, and that we go in and pave every road in that neighborhood. That's what I would like to see with the money, but I'm one person because we have park funds set aside. But that's kind of my thoughts on it, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. And just to clear up, you're saying you'd love to see the Oakland neighborhood paved, not just the park as well, right? To go to the whole neighborhood. That's what it was delineated for as well. Is that correct?
Did I say that? If I said that, I said it. What I'm saying is I would love for the park to be done, but we do have park funds. We passed a tax increase throughout the city to pave, and we do have funds that can pave with this, where we already have allocated money set aside for parks. But that's a whole separate issue, really. That's a larger scale, long term. But for today, where we're at and where we want to go is, I'm amenable to raising what we're investing in SELF and PWC personally.
I like that idea of kind of testing the waters, kind of seeing where.
Well, really, there shouldn't be an issue to, yeah, I agree. To your point, Mr. Horn, is that really, I mean, a furnace, we all know what a furnace costs. We all know what plumbing costs. And let's not even talk about labor, right? So if if they worked on, I don't know, 15 houses last year, well, if they're getting the same amount, they're only going to be able to do 11 or 12 this year, right? So that at least gets them up to where they were at in the past. And then in the future, we can talk about where they want to go.
So the idea right now that we're talking about is the possibility of increasing each PWC and self by $20,000 each. So that would be moving PWC from $60,000 to $80,000 this year, moving self from $20,000 to $40,000 this year, which would mean shifting $40,000 total from Oakland to the housing revitalization section. Is there any further discussion about that, or does council, how do we just have a consensus on that? Is that how that works?
I'd be interested in city staff's opinion as far as like, do you think we're shortchanging the Oakland Park by doing that? Like, what's our thoughts here?
My thought was, just like how we did the pickleball, we were spending down remaining funding years. Mendy could take a look at the different funding pots and see if there were ways to supplement, get that money back for Oakland and spending down other program year remaining funds. I don't know if that's potential, but I mean, that's an idea that I have.
I can certainly look at that. I think we've done a pretty good job overall, making sure there aren't huge pots of money unspent, but I will definitely look at that.
Yeah. Okay. And I want to add to that and say you're absolutely 100% correct of what I want to do, and I want to assure Councilmember Carter, we have every intention of doing Oakland Park just as we're doing every other park in town, and probably even more so. But I think we can do it at a price lower than that $402,000.
I agree with Paul. I agree with Paul, and I'm really convinced that PWC and self, they have an excellent reputation in the community, and they really do a good job. So I agree.
Okay, so is there any more comment on having Ms. Mueller look to see if there's any other money that we can supplement Oakland Park with, and then also shifting $40,000 total to the housing revitalization? Any more comment on that? No?
Don't you just love being the person that's told go find some money?
I can see self working in Oakland Park. Mm-hmm. Self and PWC would go over there and put some work in there. So it's, yes.
Okay, so that sounds like we would see that shift in the money for the annual action plan the next time on their second reading, basically, in 2 weeks. I also wanted to know a couple things. When we talk about the comments, the written comments that people can make. You said that we can come into the city building. Just so when they come to the city building, where should they go? And then we can request copies on the website. Where should people go? And then if they're emailing, where should people send them?
Yes, Deborah is the contact for all of that. So
Okay.
they go to Development Services. That's where they can leave written comments. They can email it to Deborah W. at cityofmiddletown.org. That is what has been announced in the public, is that email address. And then I want to look, given the comments from Ms. Chen, I want to look and see exactly where the annual action plan lies, so that we can be very specific about where people go to find that. If she was having difficulty, that concerns me. It's on the Development Services portion of the website, but I want to be very clear about where that actually goes, how to tell people to get there specifically. But if you search on the city website, you'll find the annual action plan, and it is out there because that's where I've downloaded it from there. But I'm concerned with her comment about having trouble finding it. I want to make sure that it's able to be found.
Sure, thank you. And do you have, when you said people can come into the city building, do you know where they should go? Should they go to Development Services on the third floor?
Yes, they should.
Okay.
Anytime that the city building is open, that's where they can leave their comments. or see a copy of the annual action plan.
Okay, and I just wanted to spell out Devra's email address because it's Devra with a V as in Victor, not Deborah with a B as in boy. So it's D as in David, E, V as in Victor, R, A as in Apple, W at cityofmiddletown.org. That's where you can email comments. And also, another question I had is the RFP for this year was done in November. So when is the upcoming deadline for requests for proposals for any organizations or people that want to submit this year for next year?
We don't have those out yet, but usually it's in the fall is when we announce those dates. We do look at social media, put information out that way, publish it in the paper, it's on the website, all those kinds of things. So as we start the new annual action plan and consolidated plan for 25, that's something that we will talk about with the people involved in that. But it's usually in the fall and due right after the first of the year has been the pattern.
All right, wonderful. Are there any other questions or comments for the public hearing for CDBG funds? No, I hear none, so thank you, Ms. Mueller. Thank you so much. And just to check in with you, Mr. Conover, is that the conclusion? Should we just go ahead and, is that the end, or is there anything else that needs to be done for the public hearing?
Yep, we're not voting tonight, so no need to do that. So you can go ahead and just close the public hearing, Mayor.
Okay, well, that being said, that will be the end of the public hearing. Thank you, everyone, for that. And the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. So, let me see here. Ms. Skank, will you please present the consent agenda?
For your consideration this evening, we have to approve the City Council minutes of the special and the regular meeting of March 5th, 2024, to receive and file the Board of Health minutes from February 13th, 2024, and to receive and file the oaths of office for Hattie Neese, Jasmine Osman, and Yvonne Pennington.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda. We will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slamka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the consent agenda is approved. At this time, I just want to check in with everyone. It's been about 2 hours since we started. Does anybody want to take a quick break? Is everybody good? We can continue. Okay. The next item on the agenda is our motion agenda. Ms. Skank, please present item A.
To authorize the city manager to apply for the fiscal year 2023 Department of Homeland Security Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response SAFER Grant Program for the hiring of 7 new firefighter EMT paramedics.
Thank you. Mr. Lally, do you have anything to add?
Yes, Council, before you on this motion agenda item is a request approval to apply for fiscal year 2023 Department of Homeland Security Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response, SAFER, grant program for the hiring of 7 new firefighters to the Division of Fire. On March 5th of 2024, the Fire Department received a notice of financial opportunity from the federal government, Department of Homeland Security, for the hiring of new firefighters. This is not a retention grant. You had to add to your current authorized strength. What the Division of Fire is asking is for council support in the hiring of 7 additional firefighters that will be fully funded for 3 years by this grant opportunity. That grant opportunity, they're going to request approximately $1.95 million, or about $650,000 a year. As I stated, this is 100% paid for 3 years, and then at the end of those 3 years, so in January, or it's sometime in 2028, depending on when we get this awarded, probably August, then we would be responsible for picking up the cost of these 7 additional firefighters. At that time, that cost probably will be in the vicinity of about $785,000 a year. That's taken into, we kind of tried to guesstimate there in our financial plan. There'll be cost of living increases in our collective bargaining agreement, and staff sitting down, city manager's office with our finance department, we feel confident in our financial plan that we will be able to absorb that cost by mid-2028. With this will allow the fire department to staff the fire department at 21 firefighters on duty per day. Right now, they're staffed at 19 firefighters on duty per day. What that means is that each station will have an engine company and a medic unit staffed in it. The present authorized strength in the Division of Fire is 85 sworn firefighters and officers. This would take us to 92 firefighter authorized strength, which was the number we were at the day I was hired in 1989. So we made it back, maybe.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve item A to allow the city manager to apply for the SAFER grant for the hiring of 7 new firefighters, EMTs/paramedics?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Having been properly moved and seconded, is there any discussion?
Quick question. City Manager Lawley, what is the attrition of the fire department, meaning retirees and people who leave annually, would you say?
Well, Tom, can you answer that? I don't know that we...
And the reason I'm asking the question is, we're getting 7 firefighters for 3 years. So that's great, but we want to continue these numbers.
Yes.
As we see people, that they get their time in and they're like, I'm retiring.
It's more of a challenge today than it's ever been because you see a lot of movement today within the Division of Fire. Also, it's cyclical with us. We might go through a period where we don't see many retirements at all, but we're kind of here in the last couple of years are getting to where we have a large percentage of our firefighters who are eligible for retiring. And as I stated, we do, even in public safety in general, see more movement, people moving from department to department.
Let's hear from the chief.
Fire Chief Snively will be coming to the podium.
If I had to give you an average, it'd be about 3 to 4 a year.
Okay.
But we do see, just based on the age, we went through a period where we didn't hire anybody, so we have this huge gap between pretty tenured people and people that are not so tenured. So it's tough to put an average on it, but if I had to do it, it'd be 3 to 4 a year.
Okay, you kind of see where I'm going. We get 7, we have them for 3 years, but we want to keep that number. So then you have this grant over here, but then you have to hire them under normal circumstances also.
Exactly.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. Are there any other questions or comments for item A, the consent agenda? And even though there is no retention requirement, and you did speak to that, could you, it does make sense to have a plan in place. Could you speak a little bit to what that looks like to be able to retain them after with that in 2028?
Yeah, as I stated, we kind of factored in what we think the average collective bargaining agreement goes through cost of living increases, health insurance increases, and other fringe benefits the department sees. And based on that and what our financial plan is, what kind of a cushion we have in our personal services, and how we project income tax intake being over the next 5 to 7 years, that's why we felt comfortable that we would be able to absorb that. Nathan, did you have anything to add on that?
No, I think we believe we're forecasting a conservative nature, because the last thing that the city as an employer wants to do is bring on new staff and then in the near term have to make hard decisions on that number of FTE. So we feel very confident in our ability to shoulder this going forward in 28 and beyond.
Perfect, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. We will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Yeses have it, and the motion passes. Ms. Skank, please present item B on the motion agenda.
To approve a memorandum of understanding with the Fraternal Order of Police, Ohio Labor Council for employees in the Civilian Employees Bargaining Unit for body camera redaction duties, premium pay, in the amount of $3 per hour for those hours in which they perform those duties.
Thank you. Mr. Lawley, do you have anything to add?
Yes, we are getting very, very close to, I think can you hear me now? I was pressing my button. We're getting very close to having our body cameras operational. The first 10 will go on supervisors, and then we have received a grant for an additional 26 or so body cameras. But it's not as simple as just getting body cameras, throwing it on. We're taking our personnel through a lot of training on the proper use of them. And then one thing also, storage space, which is a significant cost. And then you have to have what's called a video redaction specialist. What we've chosen to do is use a program where we will utilize 6 employees in our records division to all be trained in video redaction of the body camera videos that will be worn by the officers. Since this was a kind of a change in condition of employment, we had to sit down with the collective bargaining group of records individuals, and we negotiated when they spend time doing video redaction, they will receive an additional stipend of about $3 an hour. So we determined that cost, if we figure that will take about 40 to 60 hours a week, that will add about probably about $9,300, give or take something there per year. If we were to bring in a one full-time equivalent individual into that position, it probably would cost us somewhere around $100,000 to $105,000 a year.
So are we going to need to hire somebody else in that?
We're hoping not to. That's why we're going to first go with the program of using our current 5 records clerks plus a supervisor.
Okay.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve item B for the MOU with the Fraternal Order of the Police, Ohio Labor Council?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Having been properly moved and seconded, is there any further discussion?
One more thing. Question. If we're just going to go through 60 hours on one department extra a week, I mean, I don't mean to sound like this, but like what were they doing to where they just have 60 hours sitting around to go?
Well, it's going to be spread out amongst 6 individuals. We're basing that number off information we have received from other departments that have told us it's taken them anywhere from 1 full-time employee to 2 full-time employees. So anywhere from 1, 1.5, 2 full-time employees.
Okay.
Can I add something?
Yes.
So I met with the records clerk just kind of on the public record side of it, and it's my impression that there isn't there's not really a backlog necessarily right now of complying with requests. This might move things a little bit slower just because they are taking on their additional responsibility. Still certainly complying with our obligations under the Public Records Act, but it's my impression that there isn't just a lot of downtime right now, and this may just slow things down a little bit with these additional duties, but that they're just trying to sort through hopefully being able to figure out a process for that. And I think that's why Shelley, me, and the supervisor is going to be taking the heavy load on it to start. But I don't think they're just, I get where your question of like, where's that 50 or 60 hours right now? And I don't get the impression that they're just sitting around idly.
Makes sense. Well, I'm not saying that either. I'm just trying to, when you create more jobs and you're not hiring more people, something seems off there. So, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. And I also believe in having conversations that this is kind of like a trial run as well, see how this year goes. And then we can move on next year to see if we actually do need to hire someone. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, wonderful. Also, is there a maximum amount of hours that people will be working, and who is overseeing this?
This will be overseen by the records supervisor. And I don't believe, I mean, just like any job delegation or job sharing within a department, the supervisor will be responsible for evening out the workload.
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Horn.
Yes.
Mayor Slanka.
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Mrs. Carter.
Yes.
Mr. West.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. Ms. Skank, please present item C on the motion agenda.
To authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with CAM's Lawn Care for mowing and vegetation control services at Middletown Regional Airport for 2024 with a spending authorization of up to $45,000.
Thank you. Mr. Lawley, do you have anything to add?
I don't have much to add other than we put this out every year, and this year's CAM has been awarded the mowing bid at a cost of $45,000. That's based off a bit over 20 mows over a season.
Thank you. Is there, may I please have a motion to accept or approve, authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with CAM's Lawn Care for up to $45,000?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Having properly been moved and seconded, is there any discussion?
I'm sorry, I don't know who made the motion.
I did.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Also, just a question. How much would it cost to do this in-house? And is doing it in-house even a possibility for us?
Yeah, Nathan's looked into this quite extensively, and before I let him give you some of those numbers, I will tell you what's interesting is we had a company come in and show us the robot mowers they use, and that's the future. It's interesting. So, you're probably not too far down the road. There's gonna be nobody on that mower. But Nathan, you've done a little bit of work in that area.
Yeah, I think as council will see, if you just take the base bid of 20 mows, I think the lowest bidder that we're talking about here, I think is hovering around $35,000 for the year. If we were to do that in-house, we currently don't have the bandwidth staff-wise to do it now. Just to hire, just for those amount of man hours and the like, we're probably looking at an outlay north of $50,000 without taking into consideration some equipment costs, equipment time and the like. And then we run into the struggle of we're in a challenging labor market. It's an even more challenging labor market when you're looking for just seasonal or part-time labor. So the question would then also be, okay, would we have to hire full-time? And then what would be the cost impact to the city above and beyond that for the rest of the year when they're not mowing at the airport? But I think Mr. Lawley is making a good point here, and been having discussions with our airport manager, our public works staff, and I could see on the horizon that the city maybe take the leap and go into some autonomous equipment usage in some of our facilities over time.
Thank you, Mr. Cahill. Is there any other discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Slanka.
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Mrs. Carter.
Yes.
Mr. West.
Yes.
Mr. Horn.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. That concludes the motion agenda for the evening. The next agenda item is legislation. We have 10 items of legislation this evening. Assistant Law Director, Mr. Brody Conover, the legislation, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First tonight is ordinance number 2024-16, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing the purchase of a screw conveyor for the water reclamation facility from Spirit USA Incorporated and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Mr. Lawley, the staff report?
I don't have anything further to add from the first reading.
Okay, wonderful. And I just want to verify that because if there is an emergency, then in order to pass, we must have 4 out of 5, correct?
That's right.
Okay, thank you. And is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Can I add one point to my answer? It needs 4 to pass as an emergency. It can still pass with 3 votes as a non-emergency, and then would just go into effect in 30 days. So,
Thank you for that clarification. We appreciate that. Is there any further discussion? And as usual, again, Mr. Lally, could you just please briefly explain why this is an emergency for our residents?
This is a second reading emergency because it takes a significant amount of time to get this part in, and we need to get it ordered. Scott, what's the length? 32 weeks to get the piece of equipment in.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Genk, please call the roll.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes. The yeses have it, and the legislation passes. Mr. Conover, the next legislation, please.
next is ordinance number O-2024-17, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Badger Infrastructure Solutions to provide hydrovac utility locate services and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Mr. Lally, the staff report.
I don't have anything to add from the first reading.
Okay, thank you. And do we have a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? And I just wanted to ask, we do not see a contract. Would you please speak to that?
So this is a proposal. We received 2 proposals, and the proposal was received, which I sent to you guys today. Law is still, like a contract, has looked over to the proposal and has approved it.
Thank you very much. And as usual, can you please explain to our residents why this is an emergency?
Can you help me out here, Scott? I don't remember the...
Scott Tadich, our Public Works Director, will be coming to the podium to explain.
We're really just asking to forego the 30 days so we can get started right away, effectively. So.
All right. Well, thank you for that explanation.
Okay, thanks.
It's very astute.
I had a total brain forgetfulness there.
That is all right. We're all human. Okay. So is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we will go ahead and proceed to vote. Ms. Skink, the roll, please.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the legislation passes. Mr. Conover, will you please go on to the next legislative item?
Yep. Item 3 tonight is ordinance number O-2024-18, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing the purchase of an acoustic ceiling for areas in the city jail from DeGeorge Ceilings and Floorings Incorporated. This is a second reading.
Mr. Lally, the staff report.
I don't have anything further to add from the first reading.
Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion.
Who won that?
Steve.
Steve won that one. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? And just to check in, is there any, it looks like we will be paying about 50% up front.
Correct.
Does the city have a finance policy?
We don't essentially have a financial policy of putting down some money up front. Some of these smaller companies, due to the fact that they do smaller jobs or smaller companies, they need assistance of having some money up front to get the materials. And which I know you may think is a little bit of a risk, but like anything, we would have legal recourse should they not follow through with the agreed upon work.
Right, because there is a difference between private funds, like private sector, this is totally common and normal, but with public funds, there could be a difference.
Yeah, I got a question.
Mr. Horn.
So when they bid this, do they have a surety bond?
Do they have the surety bond?
Sorry, would you mind coming to the microphone, please?
One of the items with DeGeorge when they do their business is they'll typically ask for half up front. What they're doing is He's already contacted his distributors. That way he can get that merchandise up front. And once he gets that, and they've already explained to us, he'll be able to do the job in approximately 3 days.
Okay.
Inside the jail.
Understood. Normally for public work, you have to have a bond, just in case something happens where he can't do the work and someone else has to finish it for him.
Correct.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other questions for ordinance number, or for this third item? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The yeses have it, the legislation passes. Mr. Conover, please, the next legislation, please.
Next tonight is ordinance number O-2024-19, an ordinance repealing certain ordinances granting a real property tax exemption pursuant to sections 5709.40 and 5709.41 located in the city of Middletown, Butler County, declaring that the improvement of real property ceases to be a public purpose, terminating such real property tax exemptions previously granted beginning in tax year 2024, dissolving certain municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent funds beginning in fiscal year 2025, directing the transfer of the unexpended balance of such funds to the general fund upon dissolution pursuant to sections 5709.43 and 5705.14 of the Ohio Revised Code, and authorize and approving related matters. This is a second reading.
Thank you. Mr. Lawley, the staff report.
I don't have anything to add from the first reading.
Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I have some questions. Has the city fully recouped the cost of the improvements associated with these TIFs?
Nathan?
Yes, we have.
Wonderful. And I would also like to know if because the money is basically taken from the Middletown City School District, sort of. That's kind of how the
No.
TIFs work. No, not at all? No?
No.
The agreement that the city schools entered into talks about how they agree for the TIF so that the school taxes they get 30%, and that's the agreement.
These TIFs actually predate that comprehensive compensation agreement. I can't speak to whether or not there was exemptions that impacted the school's millage, but you also have millage that comes from the county, the MRDD board, library board, other taxing jurisdictions, so it impacts everyone.
Okay. So, let's see here. During the first reading, I had a question about if the school board had been included in the conversation, and the answer was the state statute allows for the funds to be placed in the general fund for the city, and then from there, council may consider how to use those funds in the future. So my follow-up question was, has Middletown City Schools been advised that they can also, the state statute also allows them to receive a portion of this money?
No, there's no direct ability under 5709.43 to send any residual funds that are remaining in the tax increment equalization fund to a school district. It says that those residual funds shall be deposited into the city's general fund. Now, what, if anything, council may desire to do with those residual funds after the fact is totally your discretion.
Correct. So
The schools are aware of that because they enter into an agreement. So they enter into the agreement fully knowing that. And it also, I don't think it's anything that really happens that often that we see as an excessive amount of funds.
No.
Right. Because it had just been said, it was like this kind of predated that agreement, but it's also kind of known as well. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Mayor, with all due respect, my philosophy and thoughts on TIFs, and we might, all five of us have a different opinion on this, but yes, it's money that the schools could have received, but at the end of the day, it's largely property taxes that was the citizens' dollars. So if the money is being spent towards the citizens in some way, I'm a proponent of if it's a deal to where it worked out for the city, if a business came in and the school still receives some of the money, and then the city can use the money in their own way, I'm a proponent of doing those deals all day long. I don't think that, in my opinion, we should go having to give the schools money back when they didn't lose any money. They actually gained money by doing the deal still at the end of the day. Just my thoughts.
Thank you. Yeah, I get that too. And because it is a benefit, that's what we discussed with TIFs. Like, they are a benefit to the city, and we all agree, and the schools do agree to that too. And when the city has been made whole, it's like, okay, what's the conversation there? Is there a possibility of giving some back to the schools? And that's kind of where I was thinking about it, especially knowing that the ARPA money for the schools has run out. They had 170 some employees that they had to cut by half. That includes I think success liaisons and language and reading tutors and things like that. So it's just wondering. But maybe that's a possibility for council to look at in the future for the general fund usage as well.
I'll just go on record and say that I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. I'm not going to let that go. That was on the schools. When their ESSER dollars ran out, it was on the schools that they chose not to retain those employees. I would recommend and advise that everybody take a look at the Middletown City School District's latest financial reports. Completely disagree. This city, for decades, has chose to invest in the public schools. We've built entirely new schools. Anything that's been an ask has been given. So when it comes to these types of deals, it is community reinvestment as a collaboration, and I would not support giving the school systems more funding out of our general fund when, if you take a look at their latest financial statement, it's not there. We all know that the city is growing. We're expanding. The citizens have invested in many areas. One of the things that we hear from a public standpoint almost unanimously is that where we need to choose to invest more is in public safety. For example, the 7 firefighters, they're going to be paid for by 3 years. But you know what? We need more firefighters anyway. Look at how many housing units we're adding. Look at how many businesses we're adding to this community. If something were to happen, look at the numbers that we have currently on staff. On average, 19 on staff? That's a city of 50,000 people. How many square feet? A lot. I just completely disagree. And I'll go back to what I said when I campaigned. They chose to pull out of the Sunny Hill deal. Now it's on us to go and do something nice for that community center. Public funds in this sense, in a general fund, are completely separate from the millions of dollars that are being raised for our school system. Not to mention that our property taxes all just increased, which the school system is going to benefit the most from. So I just want to make it clear.
The school receives, Nathan, is at about 83% of the funding towards that? Or am I off on that number?
You mean the overall tax duplicate? And
of the tax increase, yeah.
Ooh, that's probably ballpark. I'd have to verify that, but that's probably ballpark.
So from what council did last December was we voted to not take our increase of that. And the schools had the option, just like every school district and every city did, had the option to do that. And we declined that as a city. One of the few cities in the region that did that. So that money can help us catch up to the funds that we decided to try to save our citizens, is the way that I see it.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Well, just to say what Steve was saying, when we went to that, the chambers, and the state and a auditor was there explaining all the situations. And yes, you're absolutely right. It is like 65% of the increase for the next 3 years of our property values is going to the schools. And when they came back for the question and answer, the treasurer for the city school said, well, we had to have this because if with this increase that is going to cause problems to our citizens, and these two folks that were standing up there were apologizing, he's like, well, we were going to have to levy. That's sad to me. They know they're going to be receiving a lot more money for the next 3 years, and our citizens are going to struggle with these property taxes. So I'm in full agreement of, no, they don't get a dime.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. And thank you, everybody, for that discussion. Is there any further discussion on this legislation? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Gank, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mayor Slanka,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. West.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the legislation passes. And Mr. Conover, would you please read the next legislative item?
Item 5 tonight is resolution number R 2024-08, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, for the period ending December 31, 2024, and declaring an emergency. This is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 Fund for Neighborhood Revitalization.
Thank you. Mr. Lally, the staff report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Schlampka. Tonight, here in front of you is the money from the January 2023 Special Council meeting on ARPA appropriations, which Council appropriated $800,000 to go towards neighborhood revitalization. At that time, one of the programs that people wanted to see was something similar to Hamilton's 17-strong neighborhood revitalization. We looked at that as staff and council, and staff, we actually did not have the bandwidth to run a program like that. We just don't have the number of staff that Hamilton had, but we are interested in seeing if somebody could come in and run a similar program. It was put out to RFP, and we got one proposal back, and we were not satisfied with the content of that proposal. So we kind of went back to the drawing board and started talking with other organizations, and we have decided that we are going to proceed and do some programming ourselves. Currently, Assistant City Manager Ashley Combs and Development Services Director Deborah Wells are putting together the program going forward to utilize these funds. Clayton, one of the first programs we have coming out is the Trash Bash Citywide Cleanup, which will be April 20th. You'll see billboards around town and signs. He's okay, Vanna, you could.
Might come up to the podium and show us while he's talking.
Turn around.
Yeah.
So you can be on camera.
Actually, where's?
Yeah.
I think it runs off this camera.
Good.
Thank you very much.
So this is one of the first programs coming out. The planning of what we're going to do with the neighborhood revitalization is currently being determined. Another program that we'll be releasing soon will be a program that runs in conjunction with May National Home Improvement Month, which will allot a certain amount of dollars for exterior home improvement. As I stated, this kind of, Mayor, like what you said before, these two programs here are testing the waters to see what people in Middletown want to see, what we can do with it. We actually don't know the total cost of the trash pickup day because how many tires we get, appliances and stuff like that will determine what our total cost is going to be. And we may determine that we want to do this program again in the fall, and the same if we see a good turnout with the home improvement month, and then the development services team is working on. So we are asking for the monies to be appropriated tonight so we can get moving with these programs. Like the parks, capital improvements, we will keep council updated on a monthly basis on the programs and how we're proceeding with the fund allocations.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
One question that came up last night at the Middletown Connect meeting, televisions.
Oh, can televisions,
They weren't on the
no,
paper.
televisions cannot be? No televisions.
Right.
And Ms. Carter is referring to the trash pickup day. So you can bring tires, not the hub, but no televisions.
It's listed.
Yes, and go on to our
Everything is
website,
listed,
it's listed
yes.
on the website, what are the things you can put in, and Deborah has it memorized, so she's gonna, thank you, Deborah.
You're welcome. Oh, good evening again. We do have a flyer that's available on the Development Services webpage. We have a new page in our department that's titled Neighborhood Improvement Projects. This being the first of those projects, there is a map of locations where there'll be drop-off points. At this point, we are looking at 4 different drop-off location points. They will accept tires, passenger tires only, so that's cars and passenger trucks, no semis, no dump trucks, that sort of thing, off the rim, and free-on appliances. So those items will need to be brought to the Middletown High School because that's where the additional dumpsters for those specific items will be. We're gonna be accepting trash, furniture, that sort of thing. Electronics, because of their different components, because of the size, because of the danger of smashing large screens in trucks, that's why a lot of places don't want you to bring electronics. And this cleanup specifically, we did not include electronics with all of the materials. So on the Development Services page, there is a flyer that has items that we're accepting. It also has a comprehensive list of items that we aren't accepting, including hazardous materials, propane tanks, liquids of any kind, that sort of item. So we do have a map with locations, what you can and can't bring, the date and time for the event. Anybody that has any questions or needs any information or copies of a flyer, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. We have been talking to Middletown Connect. We've been in several meetings with them and Keep Middletown Beautiful. They were provided the flyer whenever it was completed. We will also be putting it out on social media. The billboards, there was a miscommunication, and so they got just a little bit of a jump on that. When they went up before tonight's meeting, they weren't supposed to. So a little sneak preview of what we're planning for this event. We also have yard signs, which is what Clayton has right now, that we will be putting out in our neighborhood parks and in common areas so that we can get the word out to as many residents as possible.
And Deborah, can you share the 4 sites?
Yeah, absolutely. There will be dumpster locations at Lefferson Park, at the bus terminal downtown at 55 South Broad, at Douglas Park, and at the Middletown High School.
All right, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And I was curious, you had, and I believe there was an email sent out today as well with more of like a breakdown, because when we first received the packet, there really wasn't a breakdown for the spending. But as you said, it's being worked on right now. And so a few of those items have actually already been included. Can you speak to a few of the items other than what was in the packet?
Absolutely. One of the things to keep in mind when we're looking at budgets for things like this, especially events like this and the home improvement projects that we're hoping for, those are capacity based. So it's almost impossible at this point to tell you what a cleanup like this will cost if we take in 100 tires or we take in 500 tires. That's going to be a significant cost difference. The idea for the home improvement projects that we're hoping to start rolling May the 1st for applications is the idea would be, say, up to an amount approved, 3,000, 4,000 people would make applications for reimbursement for expenses for projects that they had done. The city staff will review those projects, verify that they were done against the guideline criteria that we'll create for this program. But as far as how much budget that will take, are we gonna get 10 applications? Or are we gonna get 100? So it just kind of is a capacity base and a decision for council on how much of this money you wanna see earmarked to projects like that.
Question for you, Deborah.
Absolutely.
You said that, so for exterior upgrades to homes, that the owner would do it and then the city then would reimburse, is that what you said?
That is the plan at this point, pending influence from council or direction in a different manner.
So it'd be close to like how the city used to fund the facade program downtown?
Right. So the only problem I see is the people that are going to need this the most aren't going to be able to afford to pay this out of pocket up front.
Well, and that's a conversation
we're working
that we're happy to have. That's something that we've been talking about internally, is where's the threshold for supporting and making the most impact, and how council.
Now, if we worked with specific contractors and vendors to where they knew that they would be getting something from the city long term, and then they would be willing to front the material or something like that, I think that that's a potential, but I don't think that.
That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, we're happy.
Agreed.
Thanks.
We've talked about that with other projects that we were considering. We've been talking about the potential for a painting project in the summer to address some of the peeling paint issues. And what does that look like? Do we put out an RFP and find a vendor like that that is willing to partner with the city to help as many homeowners as possible with the program dollars that we have?
I think that would be smart too, because I was talking, I mean, if I'm thinking about a builder, I can get more done, or I can get things done cheaper if I guarantee a siding, 100 housing,
Right.
siding jobs, et cetera. And in my mind, you don't want Susie homeowner, let's say that the city fronts the money, and then the person doesn't do the job, and then does the city pay? Does the city not pay? So I like the idea of working with specific vendors. Are a lot of people going to want to go out and RFP city siding jobs or roof jobs? Then the cost of the job probably goes up 50% at a minimum. So you're limiting your profile of who's going to do it, et cetera. So I have their answer for that right now, but that's just off the top of my head.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that when we were having these discussions originally, we thought about the way that the facade grants used to run, because of the fact that it's a reimbursement that guarantees that the dollars that we're putting towards this actually go toward the repairs that you're looking to see done.
I just don't think that's the right way, personally.
I
Just
appreciate
me.
the input. We're absolutely creating the program at this point, so any input that you have is incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I just I think this, they do this in other cities, Toledo, et cetera, and I just think it's designed to help the people that need the help the most, and we're just going to exclude those people doing this. And the other thing I would say is that I definitely don't want to do this for investors. It would be owner occupied only.
Good points. I agree with that as well. It sounds like other people are thinking the same thing on council as well. So maybe we could look at that as well. Okay, great. I'm sure we will be getting updates about this, and we will hear more in April to kind of give people some heads up for those deadlines as well, at least in council comments during April.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Ms. Wells. We will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, the roll, please.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the legislation passes. Mr. Conover, the next legislation, please.
Yes, item 6 tonight is resolution number R 2024-09, a resolution approving the Warren County countywide 911 final plan and declaring an emergency.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lally, the staff report.
Would like to defer to the law director.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Lawley. So this is, there was a comprehensive change statewide by the General Assembly to essentially countywide 911 dispatch centers. And there's a new process for approving a plan that every county is required to have. So the jurisdictions in each county have to approve it, or if you don't vote on it, it acts as a denial. So even though we're not part of the Warren County or the Butler County call centers, Warren County has sent over a request for us to approve or to consider their final plan. It was approved by the county commissioners, I believe, at the end of February. We did not receive it from the county prosecutor until I think March 4th or 5th, which was the night of our last meeting. But they have a certain period of time under the revised code to approve and submit the plan to the state. They've asked for responses by April 1st, so that's why it's being presented as an emergency. But this is kind of a perfunctory, just yay or nay. Again, we're not participating in the plan, but they've asked, if everyone doesn't approve it, then there's a specific way to get it approved, but they've just asked, Warren County's asked for everyone to approve it, so that's why it's before you.
Thank you very much. And is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Thank you, Mr. Conover, for explaining why it's an emergency. And could you also kind of go just a little touch on for our residents, because we do have Middletown in Warren County, so why isn't Middletown included?
So we have our own dispatch center. So we run our own. If you call 911 in Middletown, it's going to the 911 center here that we run on dispatch. Whereas typically, like townships and smaller cities just don't have the capability to have their own dispatch center. I believe in Butler County, there's the countywide, there's Hamilton, and there's Westchester. In Warren County, Lebanon has one, Mason has one, and then the county runs kind of everyone else's. So that's kind of why we're not part of either Butler County or Warren County's actual 911 plan.
And thank you for explaining that. Is there any further discussion on this legislation? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Genk, the roll call, please.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes. The yeses have it, and the legislation passes. Mr. Conover, the next legislation, please.
Yes, item 7 is ordinance number O-2024-20, an ordinance authorizing the submission of an application for federal assistance, an action plan, and a projected use of funds under Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended for program year 2024. This is a first reading.
Thank you. Mr. Lawley, the staff report.
I don't have anything to add. However, I do want to make sure we're on the same page that for the financial impact for the next council meeting and voting purposes, you'll want us to make those changes that you have suggested.
I believe that is correct. We had kind of come to consensus, 20,000 each for PWC and self. So that's a 40,000 shift total.
Okay. Good. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. And may I please have a motion to approve, or I'm sorry.
It's a first reading.
Thank you. Forgive me, almost every time, because this is the first reading, there is no reason for action at this time. So, Mr. Conover, will you please, next legislation, please?
Just get into a rhythm, I get it. So next is item 8, resolution number R-2024-10, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, for the period ending December 31, 2024. This is the Court Special Projects Fund, and it is a first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Lawley. Anything to add?
Nothing to add.
All right, wonderful. And this is a first reading, so there's no action to be taken at this time. And that's all for me. Is there any discussion at this time? No, hearing none, we will move on. Mr. Conover, number 9.
Yep, resolution number R-2024-11, a resolution authorizing an amendment of a grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for a grant under the Urban Transit Program for state fiscal year 2022. This is a first reading.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawley. Staff report.
These next two items deal with our transportation program, and I'm going to defer to our Assistant City Manager, Ashley Combs.
So for number 9, the state funding year 2022, the urban transit program, there is $222,009 that needs to be extended. This one was specifically for the purchase of a bus, a small bus. Originally, we were going to purchase 2. That procurement process started in 2021, and due to conversation with BCRTA, they started that. They ordered the bus, it was then canceled. They started to order another bus, it was canceled again. And then due to COVID-19, the rising cost of everything, they have ordered it again, and fingers crossed, this bus will be delivered to us in by June of 2024. That's the first item.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this legislation, item number 9? Just to be clear, it looks like we were going to be getting the 2 buses. Now it's moved down to 1 because of what she just said. Okay.
Yes, and the scary thing about that is that is due to cost. And we're going to see that with the cost of emergency vehicles. I've just recently talking to Chief Snively and Rex from the garage. For example, a fire engine, the last one we purchased was about $464,000 or so. That cost is now up to almost $900,000. So
yes, so we're going to see
that's
more
what
of this.
happened with this bus situation. Doubled.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, as this is a first reading, there's no action to be taken on this item at this time. And Mr. Conover, the final legislation, please.
Great. Resolution number R 2024-12, a resolution authorizing an amendment of a grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation under the Ohio Transportation Partnership Program for state fiscal year 2023. This is a first reading.
Thank you. Mr. Lawley, staff report.
I'll defer again to Assistant City Manager.
Okay, so this one is for state funding year 2023 with the Ohio Transportation Partnership Program. We have $615,594 that needs to be extended. This is specifically for our Sensi Link bus that was projected to start at the end of 2023. However, this was another issue with supply chain issues, and we were supposed to have those buses by January 2024. We were able to get 5 out of 8, so we are supposed to receive, the other 3 buses were received at the end of February 2024. So that's why we needed this extended, so we could go ahead and pay for the Sensi Link specifically.
Wonderful, thank you. Is there any further discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, as this is a first reading and there is no further action required for the legislation at this time. And thank you very much. That concludes the legislation for the evening. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Do any council members have anything they would like to bring up under unfinished business?
I do, Mayor. I have a couple items. First, City Manager, where are we at on the medical marijuana repeal?
Thank you, Councilmember Horn. As you guys know, I sent kind of the email out on a rough draft of some of the research we had done for the marijuana legislation, and I've been getting some feedback from that. I've asked Jacob Schulte, our Economic Development Program Manager, to come and review that with you tonight, see if you have any other further changes to it, amendments to it, and we have every intention of bringing this legislation forward on April 2nd. Jacob?
Thank you, Paul. Mayor, members of council. Quickly, just a few slides on the marijuana legislation update. From when we last presented this about a month ago, staff has moved forward with drafting legislation that will provide 5 locally licensed permits for medical marijuana dispensaries. This license would equate to about 1 for every 10,000 citizens. License would be ran through the Economic Development Department. It would have an application and renewal fee with an automatic renewal January 1st of each year. Simple application, mostly just trying to have local control on the quotas of how many marijuana dispensaries we would have. And then this would also, just to clarify, this would just be for medical marijuana operations. Due to the state still having outstanding conversations and outstanding terms and the like with recreational, staff would just have to come into this legislation and make amendments. Hopefully none too extensive. Hopefully it don't change anything up too much from the last time, but basically just come in and do those amendments to make it recreational. Attached, you have a map here of the restriction areas. We've moved forward with trying to help create a visual from the state regulated requirements. All marijuana dispensaries, or a minimum the dispensaries and other uses, have to be at least 500 feet from any public park, public playground, school, church, and that's what we outlined and highlighted. Things worth noting, especially if you were to put a zoning overlay on this, vast majority of the business district around Jaco Park, Briel, Grand Avenue areas, pretty much out of reach. A lot of other areas along Roosevelt, because of nearby churches and parks, kind of make it inaccessible. So just from the state requirements, and we forgot to put Woodside on there, but if you included Woodside, most of the south area would also be ineligible. Point being, a lot of areas already restricted by the state requirements and guidelines. How we'd regulate these, rather than doing zoning amendments to make them specific to marijuana businesses, we'd break them down into the similar permitted uses. Dispensaries would be a retail and service use, cultivator processors would be permitted like distribution centers, and then testing labs would be looked at like a research and development facility. At this time, going back to this map, because of how extensive the restrictions are from the state level, staff is not considering any special residential setbacks. Basically, if we were to throw residential setbacks on top of this map, it would almost make it ineligible to try to find a dispensary or other marijuana business here in the city. What we look to council for additional consideration and guidance, really looking to see what cost we should set the application and renewal fee to, and then is there any other further regulations or considerations we should do. As a note for the renewal fee, originally we were looking to do about $500, which is similar to our adult entertainment fee. Other communities in legal's research for marijuana licenses, some communities have gone as high as $25,000. Whether or not that's feasible, we digress to you all as to what you want to set that to. Other things worth noting, we do have other permitting fees in the economic development world. Enterprise zone agreements are $2,500. $5,000 might also be reasonable. So I'll leave the floor to you all.
Jacob, a question. Back to that map, if you can. So on the dispensaries, I understand that. When you did the presentation before, you were saying about the places that do cultivation and manufacturing. In the kind of building that you were discussing, I'm thinking of the industrial park like over on Yankee, where it's just they're just tilt-ups, and you can't say Bud's Marijuana. It has to be called, Ajax Enterprises or whatever. So does the state have those requirements too on those buildings, or is it just on the dispensaries?
I believe it might just be on dispensaries. However, especially on terms of cultivators and processors, the Yankee Road Industrial Park, for example, that's well outside of any of those 500-foot setbacks. So on this map, Yankee's not included, but there's nothing really that would prohibit it from that regards. I know for a fact it does cover dispensaries. I can't remember off the top of my head right now if it's covering the other three options.
Well, you also mentioned that those bring kind of the higher jobs because of the people have to be able to deal with the plants and process them and grow them and such. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm looking at is not just only the dispensaries, but the other side of it too. And we put a number on the dispensaries based on population, but then there is no number really for people who want to cultivate, manufacture, and then do testing.
Correct.
Okay.
So ideally, we want to keep that open for however many, especially as it's not a public-facing, it's not a retail-facing business enterprise. Provided they meet all their state regulations and requirements, free game, essentially.
Thank you.
Jacob, you said restriction, 500 feet?
Yes. So the state requires 500 feet from any public space. They deem these public spaces to be churches, schools, public parks, and public playgrounds. This map is kind of just a rough estimate of where those are from our assets and inventory that we've been able to take into consideration. We would, however, defer the retailer when they go to apply for their state license, do their own due diligence to make sure, and due diligence and cross-vetting to make sure, rather than just going off this map.
Daycares?
Yes, daycares should be included as a school on this map, and I think the state regulates them as such. But
home daycares?
I don't know about home daycares.
As far as application fees and things like that, I think for me personally, if I could just see a couple examples of what Monroe charges, Oxford. I mean, we have a lot of examples in our market area. That way we make it, similar to what other communities have done.
So Monroe and Oxford do not have local licensing. Monroe and Oxford had followed a pattern going to this slide as to they kind of permitted them like similar uses. When they got a comfortable amount of dispensaries in their community, they issued moratoriums. Legal and had done a little bit more of a digging to see, what sort of price points we could do. Like I said, some communities, and I can't remember off the top of my head which community it was, had done up to $25,000. That might not be very reasonable, but just looking at our local licensing, a couple thousand or something would probably be a little bit more feasible. And that would just be for dispensaries with their local license. So the other three that was alluded to, cultivators, processors, and testing labs, would not have local licensing and would be free game.
I believe 7 Mile follows the path that you're alluding to, if I'm not mistaken. I know they charge a renewal fee every year.
Okay.
I can ask them or whoever. I'm 99% sure. But yeah, to me, let's look at what other people do and why wouldn't we charge the most amount of money we can get? Is that a crazy theory? I mean, I'm being serious. Like, why wouldn't we get the most amount of money we can for the taxpayers? I don't. That would be my thing. So just if we can look at like 5 cities around here that does it, then that's what I would say.
Yeah, and especially since you just spoke to Monroe and Oxford, they have it sounds like you said they have a moratorium. No more dispensaries are going to be going there.
Correct.
So yes, to the point, like just let's check and see what we can do. Okay.
I'm wondering if we could put one downtown in one of those banks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an opportunity. So as of right now, with just regulating it like a retail and service commercial use, it would be eligible in the downtown. However, specific to the zoning buffering, it does get a little hairy when you get to the probably western 2/3 of downtown, just because there's an excessive amount of churches and parks in that area. It's almost ineligible. But in the locations that there would be an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't fall under the medical moratorium that we have downtown, or would it?
That's what I just asked. That
Yeah.
kind of caught me off guard there, because we have a medical moratorium, so I would assume, Deborah?
Strike me, we would
Ever
probably
make your 30th
treat
trip
it just
down
like
here.
a pharmacy or any
Well-
retail use. It's not a service.
It wouldn't be the first council meeting somebody had said, just pull up a chair and come down here and sit. I think this is a question that zoning and economic development are gonna have with the law department, because I had the same thought as a zoning administrator, specifically when you're talking about medical marijuana.
Right.
That's the filling of a prescription. Now, when you're talking about recreational marijuana, that absolutely, in my opinion, would fall under retail or service. But the distinction between the medical versus recreational, there is no medical use allowed in the UC district downtown. So I'm gonna have to defer to law on whether or not, in their opinion, medical marijuana qualifies in more of a pharmacy aspect than it would, say, a retail shop.
In that area downtown, that's a pretty small area though, correct?
The UCC is centralized around Central Avenue. The UCS, on the other hand, expands out towards Titus Avenue, over across First Avenue. It's a surrounding area that includes more residential uses than the UCC does. It's right downtown along Central. But it's for the UC district that those uses are prohibited. So I would be interested to have a conversation and see where law falls on the side of that, on whether or not that's medical or retail.
Thank you. We could probably have that for the first reading on April 2nd. Thank you. Is there any other discussion right now for this? I was wondering if the residents have any feedback that they would like to give, having seen all of this, where should they send that or call, email or call?
Let me get with Clayton tomorrow, and we can see what we can put online and set up to have the community's feedback on it.
From a preliminary feedback sense, I did gather some metrics. So the city in November 22 did release some surveys online. The response back did get there was 568 responses with a 68% interest in allowing medical dispensaries in the community. There was a pretty high percentage in that also wanted them to see them in the downtown commercial areas. Also in the marijuana realm, state issue 2, I pulled the numbers for the Butler County side of the election results, and the community voted 63% yes for the area. So that's some preliminary numbers.
Well done. Thank you, Mr. Schulte. That's very useful information.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion on this item? Mr. Horn, you said you had a couple items?
Where are we at on the aquatic center?
Okay, so with the Aquatic Center, our attorneys made some drafts for the agreement, sent it to the YMCA. Their attorneys looked at it, and then I believe they got that back to Austin on Monday, and Austin should have something this week.
Yeah, and I know that Austin talked with their attorney yesterday as well. So it's moving along. It's just kind of going back and forth between the attorneys right now.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any unfinished business that they'd like to bring up?
I just had a quick question. When are the RFPs due for the senior center?
They were open today. They were due by 11 p.m., or excuse me, 11 a.m., and they were open today. We received 2.
Okay. I knew it was sometime right about now, but couldn't remember. Okay.
Perfect, thank you so much. Anything else? And as far as unfinished business goes, I was curious, I wanted to know about the home action plan. I think, is that correct that the CDBG has an action plan and home also has an action plan? And can somebody speak to that who's already at a microphone, or do you want to come back down? I'll just put it out there. Let me just say it this way.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in seeing that, so you can discuss that with staff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there a
I'm fine.
specific?
Nope. That
Oh,
was just
okay.
it. Nope.
Okay.
Nothing to be spoken to at this point. Just be interested in seeing that as well. And then also, the last thing I was curious about, if there was any update as far as the Wayland project for the downtown businesses for the residents.
Not since Lisha gave the update 2 weeks ago.
Okay. That was it for me. Anything else? Nope. Okay, so that concludes unfinished business. Now, the next item on the agenda is new business. Do any council members have any new business to announce? No, at this time. Okay, so hearing.
I think Paul does.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said no. Mr. Horn, please.
Did a lot of notes today. Okay, on new business, I got an apples and oranges issue with the food trucks, food trailers, and the food truck parks. So the first thing I want to discuss just briefly is, one, the reason why we have permits in a city is, one, it notifies the city of that something's occurring and something's going on. And then the purpose of the permit, it brings revenue in, but not anything like that's necessary or helpful. But it notifies the city of, okay, something's going on, and then there's action taken, and that's why you have a permit. On the food truck and food trailer, let me just really briefly just tell you why the two differences in my mind is this. We have legislation for the food trucks, food trailers. My definition of those items are folks come in they bring their food truck, food trailer in for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and then they go home. Or they come in and they do an event like Food Truck Friday, or they come in for a weekend event. My only concern with the permitting is that we say, okay, we want you to pull a permit for if you're doing it on public property, but not private. Now, on the application, it just says check one or check the other. And the thing is if you check it on private property, it just has two little boxes: who owns it and a phone number. And then the city probably calls them and says, or leaves a voicemail, hey, this person's going to they said they're going to have a food truck on your property, and that's the end of it. And then that private property can do that. Not everyone pulls permits when they're supposed to, but I think that still should be on there. That's my first item. The next item is the food truck parks, or like I saw the sign, the food truck cafe. To me, we need to wrangle this in. Because either we're going to have to bring some legislation together to make a description of, okay, this is a food truck park, and this is when you have multiple food trucks or trailers on a piece of property, and they're selling food. So either we're going to say, all right, you're going to be a brick and mortar, and here's all the designations, and here's all the rules and regulations that you're going to have to do, or we write our own legislation for this, which will be a little bit of column A of a brick and mortar, and the ordinances for the food truck, food trailer still is applicable. But I think we're going to have to do something, and I think we're also going to put a moratorium of at least 90 days and not let any more food truck parks or cafes come into our city till we have this under control. And I understand that if I have the food truck, food trailer is parked and it moves, it's supposed to be moving every 40 days. I doubt we have the manpower to check that. And like we've discussed before, I just moved, now I get another 40 days. I just moved, I get another 40 days. So I would like to task the city manager and the law director to come up with some type of legislation or some type of plan, or if it's easy enough just to say, if you're going to have multiple food trailers, this is an open air restaurant, and you are the same as a restaurant, be it in a strip mall or a standalone, that's fine. But it's only also fair to the folks that are doing this, because maybe they're confused, because they just think it's okay, they're a food truck, and they're just doing it just like everyone else. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. And Ms. Carter, go ahead and put your microphone on.
It was on.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you. I can only hear you in my ear, not on the mic. Thank you.
I wanted to address parking and to maybe get some understanding with cars parking on the wrong side of the street. It's all over. And so I'm wondering, is not a violation?
To address that, Councilwoman, yes, it is. We just need to know where it's at. I mean, the officers enforce the parking as much as they can. A few years ago, we had a traffic officer that addressed all of those issues. That was her specific duties. But right now, I can tell you, a lot of times the officers are running from call to call to call. I send out the parking complaints as they come in. They actually come to me personally from Mrs. Wells' department. And those parking complaints go out daily to the beat officers. So if that's happening, just get me a list or have the residents call in and we'll address it as it comes in. So
Every street?
I don't see it on every street. But
Where I live live on 6th.
okay.
My neighbor.
Right.
7th. Over there on Poplar. On 6th across Main Street.
Okay.
Everyone's parking on the wrong side of the street.
Okay. We'll send some. I'll put that in the parking complaints. I'll do that tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll start looking at some target enforcement in that area and some other areas.
Curtis.
Okay.
Yeah, all of those streets. Oh, everyone is like, they're just parking however. And I see it often.
Okay. And then Councilman Horn, I will get with the law department, with the health department and development services, and let's see if we can't get something here by the second meeting in April.
Wonderful, thank you. Is there any other new business from council at this point? No. Okay. So hearing none, the next item on the agenda is executive session. And I do have to read quite a lot. So do I hear a motion to move to executive session under the authority of ORC 121.22G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and under the authority of ORC 121.22G8 to consider confidential information related to the marketing plans, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance, or to negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance, provided that both of the following conditions apply. 1, the information is directly related to a request for economic development assistance that is to be provided or administered under any provision of Chapter 725, 1724, or 1728, or Section 701.07, 3735.67, 3735.70, 5709.40 to 5709.43, 5709.61 to 5709.69, 5709.73 to 5709.75, or 5709.77 to 5709.81 of the revised code, or that involves public infrastructure improvements or the extension of utility services that are directly related to an economic development project. 2, a unanimous quorum of the public body determines by a roll call vote that the executive session is necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project.
Motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Ms. Gank, would you please call the roll?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The motion passes. We will now move to executive session. We will be returning to open session to appoint new boards or commissions members and to adjourn the meeting.